Good afternoon. Welcome to the City of Palm Coast Planning and Land Development Regulation Board. Today is Wednesday, December 17th. It is 5:30 p.m. Please stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Irene, roll call, please.
Vice Chairman Albano.
Present.
Chair Shank.
Present.
Board Member Hilton.
Here.
Board Member Nicholson is excused. Board Member Ferguson.
Here.
Board Member Stansel.
Present.
Board Member Gross is excused. Board Member Decker.
Here.
School Board Member Devana is excused. Madam Chairwoman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move to the next item on the agenda. We will actually be approving 3 minutes from the November 5th, 2025 workshop, November 19th, 2025 business meeting, and November 19th, 2025 workshop. Did all of the planning board members receive the minutes? Are there any corrections? Seeing none, we will entertain a motion for each one. We will approve them individually. So we'll entertain a motion for November 5th, 2025 workshop.
Make a motion for approval.
Irene, roll call, please.
Board Member Decker.
Yes.
Board Member Hilton.
Yes.
Board Member Stansel.
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Albano. Chair Shank.
Yes,
Motion carries 6-0.
thank you. We will now entertain a motion for November 19th, 2025 business meeting. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve. I'll second.
Thank you. Irene, roll call, please.
Board Member Decker.
Yes.
Board Member Hilton.
Yes.
Board Member Stansel.
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Albano. Chair Shank.
Thank you. Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. We will now move to motion for November 19th, 2025 workshop. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
In a second.
I'll second.
Irene, roll call, please.
Board Member Decker.
Yes.
Board Member Hilton.
Yes.
Board Member Stansel.
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Albano.
Yes.
Chair Shank.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. We will now move to the next item on our agenda, which is the technical site plan and landscape betterment plan for Chipotle, application number 6374. Mr. Papa.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Good evening to everyone in the audience. My name is Jose Papa. I'm a senior planner for the City of Palm Coast. This first item, members of the board, is a technical site plan and landscape betterment plan for a proposed Chipotle to be located on the northeast corner of the southwest, Palm Coast Parkway Southwest and Belterre Parkway. So it is an existing site, and Dylan Rodriguez, our planner, will provide you with all the details of this proposal.
All right, good evening, Planning Board. So like Jose said, today we're here to present the Chipotle Technical Site Plan Tier 1 with a landscape betterment plan. So this is an aerial attached. The Chipotle site is located at the intersection of Belterre Parkway and Palm Coast Parkway, specifically the northeast corner of that intersection. And this is a major commercial corridor along Palm Coast Parkway. This is a close-up aerial. The owner has submitted a technical site plan Tier 1 with a landscape betterment plan that requires review and determination by PLDRB. Typically, a technical site plan Tier 1 does not come to Planning Board, but due to the landscape betterment plan, it is in front of you today. The future land use on the property is mixed use along with all the adjacent properties. The zoning of the property is COM2, as well as all the surrounding and adjacent properties are COM2. The existing site was developed for a convenience store and a gas station in 2001, back when the development was reviewed under Flagler County. CRH2 LLC purchased the property in February of 2023, and Mr. Stokel, the agent and engineer, and staff have been working since April to modify the site plan to preserve a large amount of the existing buffer trees and vegetation on this site. Attached is a technical site plan. It's a proposed 2,425 square feet restaurant Chipotle. They meet their parking requirement of 24 parking spaces, providing 2 ADA spaces. They do have a pickup window for mobile orders, and they provide a common area in the southwest corner, which is part of the landscape betterment plan. With this plan, they're planning to preserve 6 oaks and the other screening vegetation along Palm Coast Parkway and Belterre Parkway, as well as to the north and east. And those trees are 16 inches in diameter, so they are established trees. And the existing facilities on the site will be demolished. The 5 criteria for a technical site plan can be found in section 20505 of the LDC, and they must not be in conflict with public interest, must be consistent with the land development code and comprehensive plan, must not impose a significant liability or hardship on the city, must not create an unreasonable hazard or nuisance, and must comply with all applicable government standards. Planning staff has reviewed these 5 criteria and provided details in the staff report. The addition will not create a nuisance, hazard, or any incompatibility issues with the surrounding development and it's in compliance with the mixed-use designation. And it supports goals, policies, or objectives of the comprehensive plan. Landscape requirements. So you can see here, the parking lot landscape is met. They are providing 1,775 square feet of parking lot landscape, and as well as the landscape buffer plantings is met already on the existing site. With the landscape betterment plan, they are providing 3 hardscapes, which are required, well, they're required 2 hardscapes. They're providing 3, which is 2 benches and a fountain in the garden area. They are missing 840 square feet of this landscaped area, and in replacement, they're proposing an alternate location, 980 square feet of supplement. So you can see that B callout is where they are missing that area. It's to the west along Belterre Parkway, and they're providing the additional in the southwest corner of the project. This is a zoomed-in version of that same plan we were just looking at. You can just see in better detail the 2 benches that they're providing as well as the fountain. They're proposing transplanting 5 sable palms, a paver walkway, and all of that area equals 980 square feet, as well as they're proposing planting dwarf mondo grass and 3 cardboard palms. To be eligible for an alternative landscape betterment plan, the applicant must propose a landscape plan with at least the same quality of required plants and the same amount of landscaped area, but in a revised location or design layout. The applicant proposes maintaining the established plant material which meets the current requirements in the same landscaped area as required by our LDC standards with the landscape betterment plan. The alternative landscape betterment plan shall also provide at least 2 landscape hardscape features not otherwise required that are pedestrian friendly, such as fountains, benches, or artwork. And the applicant is proposing those 2 benches as shown on the site plan, as well as a fountain. The alternative landscape betterment plan needs to provide at least as much public benefit, screening from the right-of-way and adjacent properties, and aesthetic appeal as if the landscape standards were strictly followed. So the existing site was reviewed in 2001 under Flagler County. This does mean that the LDC section 11010203 or B3 of the landscape chapter requires that only new parking areas to serve a grandfathered-in project be brought into compliance with our landscape standards. That's why we only see it on the west side of the project. The proposed development will minimize impacts to the established vegetative screening and trees on site. The required landscape area will be offered above the current required and offer a visual appealing atmosphere for pedestrians and drivers. Staff recommendation is for the Planning and Land Development Regulation Board to find the project in compliance with the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan, approve a technical site plan and landscape betterment plan for Chipotle, application number 6374. And the applicant is here to take questions as well.
Thank you. The applicant may approach. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is John Steckel, MJ Stokes Consulting. Address is 7702 Cedarhurst Lane, Tampa, Florida, 33625. While he's pulling it up, I just wanted to kind of talk about the project overall. Just have some basic visuals just to talk through. I think Mr. Dylan Rodriguez did a pretty good job of summarizing the site plan as well as the betterment. We're just showing an overall aerial of the plaza. That southwest corner of the development is where the Chipotle is. This is just an aerial of the existing conditions, just showing some of the line work. And you can see the tree canopies that were planted back with the development in 2001. As Dylan had mentioned, they're all 16-inch diameter, give or take. We're looking to preserve primarily around the perimeter and wherever we can. Some of the new improvements, some of those interior trees that you see between our property and the Publix Plaza, the greater area, there's some have to be removed, replaced as part of the project, just for preservation purposes. We can't maintain the root systems and everything. So here, just to show the existing versus proposed, you can see the approximate 2,000 square foot convenience store, as well as the canopy and the sea of pavement in the center of the site, will be entirely demolitioned. The west and south sides of the property, we're maintaining the curb line for the most part. That was also based on working with the city arborist and landscape team to preserve the roots and make sure that these mature trees are preserved through the process. This is just, again, we had shown the site plan before, but I think the most important part here is we're showing to improve the pedestrian connection from the south side, running up through the site to the restaurant, and then also continuing north into the greater plaza. The existing conditions on the site, pedestrian connection is a little disconnected, so this should improve that aspect. And then we just colorized the betterment plan here. The main reason for not being able to provide the landscape buffer is because of that existing curb line, which you see in the blue. If we had removed that to increase the buffer, we'd have to remove all the trees that are there to replant them. So that's pretty counterproductive. So working with the city team, we developed pretty much just a small pedestrian park for the community at the intersection that's shown in red. That is a greater area and exceeds the requirements as Mr. Dylan Rodriguez has spoken, as well as the seating at the restaurant and planting around both the perimeter interior and exterior. So we think the site, clearly with the abandoned gas station for the last few years, we feel we've done a pretty good job to improve this both aesthetically and provide a new restaurant for the community. We just want to include these. You can see in the top left corner, that's the fountain that our landscape architect had specified, just with some basic benches, and then you can see the paver sidewalk area where the benches will be around the fountain, with just a spec uplighting, and then the standard Chipotle sign. We didn't have any formal rendering prepared, but the architect had provided us their 3D angles of the building. As spoken before, the drive-through on the site is only for mobile pickup only, so that generally speaking, the queuing isn't what you typically see at a McDonald's or other drive-through restaurant. That's about it. I don't know if there's other questions.
Thank you. We'll return to the planning board. Do you have any questions? Anybody? Yes.
How long has this property been vacant? Do you know?
Our client had purchased it in 2023. They had been in contract with a national convenience store brand. They'd made some improvements to it, but they went bankrupt on the national level prior to opening. I'm not sure, previous to their ownership in 23, how long it had been vacant for.
I think it was a gas station
It
prior?
was.
Yeah. What, were the tanks needed to come out of the ground, or are they still buried there?
We've already permitted with the DEP, and they were abandoned in place and backfilled with an approved, I want to say it was a sand mixture.
So-
And that's been closed out, so FDP, we have closure permits on all of that work.
So the bulk of this is the landscaping, hardscaping betterment plan to comply with the land development code. But this technical site plan has no real changes from, at this point?
I mean, really, the only, we tried, like I said, along the west and south property lines to prefer those, to keep those existing buffers and trees. We held those curb lines. The main difference would be that the access points stay the same. It generally is turning into a one-way circulation pattern around the building, whereas with a gas station like many, you can kind of drive in every which direction. But other than that, just complying with the code and the pedestrian access points.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I was just curious, how long is the project going to take to?
The owner's contractor is ready to go after the new year, and I believe they're projecting a June, July opening.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll open for public comment. If any of the members of the public would like to speak, please approach and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one approach, oh, what, okay.
Jim Durso, W section. Believe it was abandoned, since I've been down here since '03, it's been off and on. Was a gas station and convenience store, closed more than it's been open, so it's probably been abandoned at least more than 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years even. But personally, no offense to anybody, but I've been to Chipotle several times. I don't like it. I'd rather see an Arby's, but since you're going with what you got, let's deal with what's on hand. The way it was designed, there's only one in and one out around the backside, so I'm going to guess that they're going to put in better access in and out to get in, like for all from Belterre and our Palmcoast Parkway, because it is kind of a small area there. So I'm just guessing that they're going to really improve the in and out access egress to that area when they build this.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that would like to approach? Seeing none, we will close public comment. We return to the planning board. Any additional comments?
That was a good question. Are they going to improve the in and out of the facility?
So based on the question there, the access points into the plaza will not be changing. There is the northbound in and then the eastbound in. So at each corner of the property, we don't have that much control over that. As far as Publix kind of has a pretty heavy hand. All I can say is that we are improving the radius on the access point into the property based on what it was before. It was really tough to kind of cut in, especially on the northbound. You're almost doing a U-turn into the site. We've improved that a little bit, but the access points themselves are pretty set in stone.
Thank you. Any other comments? I believe in staff report I saw that it has been vacant since 2011. So I'm really happy to see that site being developed. And the landscape betterment plan looks really, really nice. So we will now close the board.
I was just going to say that I think it's an eyesore right now, so anything in place would be better, even if it was an Arby's also. I think that...
You mean even if you don't like guacamole?
Yeah. So I think putting something there would be good. I think the plan is a good plan, and I look forward to it.
Thank you. So will you please put staff recommendation back on the screen, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. We will now entertain a motion for the technical site plan and landscape betterment plan for Chipotle application number 6374.
I'll make a motion for approval with the staff recommendation. How do we want to word this? Project is in compliance with the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan approval for technical site plan and landscape betterment plan for Chipotle application number 6374.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
Okay, Mr. Stansel, will you please call roll, Irene?
Board Member Decker.
Yes.
Chair saying this is a quasi judicial item, so I just need everyone to do their ex parte communication disclosures before you take your vote.
Okay, do we have any ex parte communications? No,
Negative from all members. Thank you.
thank you. Irene, roll call, please.
Board Member Decker.
Yes.
Board Member Hilton.
Yes.
Board Member Stansel.
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Albano.
Yes.
Chair Shank.
Yes,
Motion carries 6-0.
thank you. We look forward to Chipotle. The next item on our agenda is the Mobile Food Dispensing Vehicles Ordinance 2026-XX. Mr. Papa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item will be presented by our other senior planner, Mr. Michael Hansen. Just a quick background on where this ordinance has been. It went to, a proposed ordinance was presented at a city council workshop last month where we received public comments. And based on those public comments and direction from staff, the drafter of the ordinance, Mr. Hansen, has made revisions to that ordinance. So here we are tonight to present basically a proposed ordinance, which includes comments from staff, comments from the city council. And Mr. Hansen.
Good evening, Michael Hansen, Community Development. So as Mr. Papa said, this item was heard at the City Council workshop on October 28th. At that particular workshop, council gave us direction in effort to aim this ordinance towards opening it up towards some additional accessory uses. A little bit of background. Mobile food dispensing vehicles and/or temporary commercial kitchens as defined by state statute is housed under section 509.102 of Florida statutes. This law has been in place for a while. It sets up a number of preemptions regarding the regulation, licensing of food trucks. That's all preempted the state. Municipalities like Palm Coast are limited to allowing or determining which zoning categories within the municipality that food trucks or mobile dispensing vehicles would be permissible in, and operational standards therefore. Currently, the city only allows mobile food dispensing vehicles through a special event permit. You may have seen these pop up through Food Truck Tuesday events, otherwise the annual tree lighting ceremony or various other city events. Over time, we've seen a number of increased mobile food truck dispensing vehicles and vendors popping up throughout the city at various parking lots and along streets. So this ordinance was drafted, through an ad hoc process at direction from above and with direction from council to help hone in and establish places to allow mobile food dispensing vehicle operators to be able to permissibly vend their food within the city. That way we can avoid any kind of potential safety issues or issues of potential needing code enforcement involvement. As I previously mentioned, this came before City Council at workshop on October 28th. At that meeting, they took a consensus vote to have us expand the ordinance to include mobile food dispensing vehicles to be able to operate as an accessory use within select non-residential zoning districts on privately developed land. So essentially, if I was a business owner and owned some kind of entertainment, electronic store or something like that, theoretically, I'd be able to apply to allow a food truck operator to establish food truck operations within my property. Following that meeting, there was a number of engaged stakeholders at that meeting that staff ended up bringing into a conference room, and we discussed over some of the finer points of the draft ordinance and recommendations from the stakeholder community for approximately 2 hours. Some of the folks left a little sooner than that. Some of the people stayed until they had voiced their opinions, which is approximately 2 hours. So this ordinance here, it captures that expanded direction, incorporates the input we've received. Additionally, prior to this meeting, the current draft was sent out to an email list of approximately 65 mobile food dispensing vehicle vendors that have registered with previous events within the city for their review and to be able to input any kind of feedback that they have and also invite them to this meeting. So there's probably a number of the individuals here in attendance that are here for this item. Part of the ordinance talked about potential publicly owned facilities as far as that area zoned for public, semi-public, or P&G areas. It's typically kind of park elements. So the ad hoc committee that helped draft the initial legs of this ordinance in conjunction with the Parks and Recreation Department identified some of the various park entities that you'll see, such as Indian Trails, Holland Park, Ralph Carter Park, the Stage over here in Town Center, and Seminole Wood Park. Now, that's not to be fully exclusive, but just to give kind of an example of some of the potential sites that may be developed for accessory use of food trucks or mobile food dispensing vehicles on city-owned property, if this ordinance is adopted as is. As going into kind of some of the language of this ordinance, in our use table for non-residential uses, you'll see there's a quick correction to address a misspelling for microbreweries. And then it goes into this new use for mobile food dispensing vehicles and/or temporary commercial kitchens. The letter A is for accessory use. The letter P is permitted uses in principle. So in the zones for COM2, COM3, ID1, and MPD, it has a P and an A, so it'll allow for either principal or accessory use. And with MPD, that's based on the development agreement with that individual MPD, whether it would allow for a potential mobile food dispensing vehicle, since that's a development established by the applicant and landowner of that particular property and the city. As we go through, the proposed ordinance would create section 422 of the Land Development Code to house the additional requirements for mobile food dispensing vehicles. There are 2 exceptions provided that relate to mobile food dispensing vehicles related to special event based on our code of ordinance. That way it doesn't impact anything that the city is currently and has been doing for over a decade with events like our Food Truck Tuesdays. Additionally, an exception is provided for catered private events not longer than 6 hours on private land where no food products, sell, or service is made to the general public. So this is put in here in the event that if I was to, say, host a reception for a wedding, I could have a food truck operator hired as a private caterer for that event. And as long as they're just serving the actual event attendees, they would be accepted from the requirements of this ordinance, so long as that reception didn't last more than 6 hours. So, zoning applicability, as I mentioned a couple slides ago, as it's set up, it permits for COM2, COM3, ID1, and MPD for principal use. Otherwise, based on council direction, as accessory use in the COM1, COM2, COM3, ID1, PSP, PNG, and MPD zoning districts. There's also this line here that mobile food dispensing vehicles shall be considered a customer ancillary use of sites developed as a park, performing arts center, or athletic complex within the city. That particular statement helps allow for the provision of mobile food dispensing services within any of those kind of municipal or civic kind of areas, such as in the parks or on the stage, or if hypothetically a theater were to be developed or such. This provision for site plan approval largely applies to sites developed as a principal use only. Based on council direction that we received at the workshop on October 28th, there's language in here that for sites developing for accessory use, will submit an application by the property owner or their authorized agent on a form that the city will create. That application will essentially have a concept plan showing the location of the operational area for a mobile food dispensing vehicle, and a statement that identifies how many mobile food dispensing vehicle spaces there would be, hours of operation, frequency of operation. Additionally, it will provide an indemnity clause that indemnifies the city and holds us harmless against any potential events of liability, claims for damages, or suits for any reason. This further goes into developmental standards. So there's developmental standards for principal use. The intent with the principal use is if someone was to develop essentially like a food truck park. So if I were to buy a site, say a two-acre site that's zoned COM2, and set up so that I could have 10 or a dozen food truck pads on site. As the owner of the property, I would have shared common restrooms, common seating area for my leased food truck vendors that would come onto site and provide services. Within the principal use, there's language in here that would allow also them to develop such a like small outdoor recreation area, like a little playground for kids that were kind of run around and hanging out with their parents and having dinner or lunch, as the case might be. There's also requirements for that common area is separate from any kind of vending area, dining area, or any provided outdoor recreation. Now, accessory use is a little bit different. So how the accessory use breaks down, there's essentially kind of two kinds. It's set up so that it's developed on an existing conforming principal use. So a conforming principal use is important to note because if the property is non-conforming to the zoning district, that site will not be able to develop for a mobile food dispensing site. So the underlying property has to be conforming to the zoning district that it has. So your COM1, COM2, COM3 that we discussed. And that has, when we're talking about conforming, we're talking about minimum lot size and width. So typically you're looking at sites 20,000 square foot in size, depending on the zone for COM2 or COM3, and with a minimum width of 100 feet. So it's fairly minor requirements to be considered conforming. But any kind of mobile food dispensing vehicle operating as an accessory use on a site that's already developed does not require any additional parking area, dining area, or restroom areas outside those required for the principal use. The other big caveat, because these sites are developed as a principal use, in no circumstances shall a mobile food dispensing vehicle reduce the number of required parking. So as we get into the dimensional standards we're setting up within further in the ordinance, there's language that mobile food dispensing site would be 20 foot in width by 25 foot in length. That kind of coincides with parking requirements that we have for parking lot development. Our standard size for a perpendicular stall is 9 feet in width by 20 foot in stall depth. So if you take three parking spaces next to each other, that gets you to 27 foot as far as the overall length of that space by that 20 foot. So it's just slightly over what we had required for the space in this current draft ordinance. So essentially for sites that are developed where a mobile food dispensing vehicle might be operating within a parking lot, that they'd essentially cover up to a maximum of 3 parking spaces per mobile food dispensing vehicle. Operating hours in the draft ordinance are tied to essentially that no mobile food vendor will provide food, sell, or service to the general public between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. If it's a site that's developed as a principal use, they're not required to be removed from the parcel, but as an ancillary or accessory use, they have the same limitation of the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., but the actual hours of operation are tied to the hours of operation of principal use. So if we go back to the motif of Michael's electronics store, if my store closes at 10 p.m., that would be the time that the mobile food dispensing vehicle that I have on site would have to close up operations by. And since it's set up as an accessory or ancillary use, essentially they would then have to pack up and take off for the site during the time that they're not able to be. There are a couple exceptions to that based on state statute under that section 509.102. On-site location requirements, it's broken down to general, principal, and accessory use. The main things that we were looking for when we drafted this, we wanted to hone in on safety. So we didn't want any kind of mobile food dispensing vehicle site to impact any kind of required easements, wetlands, landscape wetland buffers, threatened or protected species, drive aisles, sidewalks, crosswalks, emergency access, fire lanes, required loading zones, rights of way, or otherwise impede any kind of traffic for ingress or egress to any of the existing buildings or businesses on the site. The mobile food dispensing vehicles are to be located on an impervious surface based on this ordinance. As a reminder, mobile food dispensing vehicles associated with a special event are exempt from this ordinance, and that's that requirement. So sometimes you'll see at some of the special events, there might be, if you take a look over by the tree lighting area on the southern end of the park here, there's typically a food truck or two over by where the Santa's Village is, and that's over grass. And that's part of a special event that's exempted from this requirement. Now, as a principal use, any kind of recreational area that gets provided as an ancillary use can be located on a pervious or impervious surface, but we put in safety precautions that it be enclosed by a perimeter fence and buffered by a minimum of 5 feet from any kind of parking area or drive aisle. The whole intent behind that was safety, once again, because we don't want any kids getting out into traffic. As far as accessory or sites developed for accessory use, on a site that's developed within a vehicular use area, such as a parking lot or internal drive aisle, they'll have to provide on-street marking with traffic cones, a minimum at least 3 feet in height every 6 feet surrounding the area of operations. Those traffic cones are not required in the event that a mobile food dispensing vehicle area is not in a vehicle use area on site. So with my electronics store motif, if I have an additional grass area next to my building, that is where I have my leased mobile food vendor set up operations, then it'd be okay because that's outside of a driveway. But if they're in the parking lot area, we have a provision in there for traffic cones to increase visibility of the area. And once again, tying back to the safety, because we don't want anybody potentially getting ran over if there's operations within a parking lot area where vehicles are driving around. The minimum dimensional requirements that we talked about briefly, there's requirements for principal use to provide a shared parking spaces, shared restroom facilities. The ancillary accessory uses do not have to provide that requirement for parking or restrooms, but the dimensional standards are established under these tables. So when we're looking for conforming sites, we're talking about that minimum lot size of 20,000 square foot that we're targeting. The minimum space for a mobile food dispensing vehicle is 500 square feet, which is the 25 times the 20 for length and width. And those measurements, like I said, match up to pretty close to 3 parking spaces next to each other. For sites developed as a principal use, the maximum number of mobile food dispensing vehicles would be capped at 15. We're looking at a minimum fire separation between mobile food dispensing vehicles of 10 feet. as some of them may have open flame and potentially be a fire hazard. And then we have other requirements for safety precautions for potential fires as well. There's standards for minimum parking, minimum seating for the principal use areas. Excuse me. For sites developed for ancillary accessory use, we're looking at same minimum lot size, 20,000 square foot. With the same space requirement, length, width. However, the maximum number of spaces is limited to 3. Now, and it has the same separation between mobile food dispensing vehicles at 10 feet. Once again, for safety purposes. Now, this particular piece is for administrative deviations. So if you ask about, 15 spaces or 3 spaces, this provision for administrative deviations allows for an increase to those number of spaces with an increase to the size of the lot that they're operating. So essentially, every 10,000 additional square foot would provide an additional mobile food dispensing vehicle space onto the site, capped at a bonus of up to 5 additional spaces. There's language in there that for whatever reason, due to site constraints, if the minimum width needs to be adjusted, then they provide compensatory increase to the minimum length at a rate of 2 for 1. So that way, if you take 2 feet off the minimum width of a space to reduce it from 20 feet down to 18, you then increase 4 feet to the length. The intent for that is to have on-site customer queuing areas within that mobile food dispensing vehicle space. Because once again, if they're going to be located within a parking lot area, we want to keep them out of any kind of vehicular area where cars might be coming. Outdoor dining and signage, it's required based on for principal use, but as an accessory use, if the accessory use operates in a vehicle use area, there's no outdoor dining areas, so no tables, chairs, tents, or canopies allowed. If that mobile food dispensing vehicle is an accessory use in an area that's outside of a vehicle use area, so in my motif back in the grass area on Mike's Electronics Store, then it's up to the owner's approval whether or not they want to have tables, tents, canopies set up on that site. However, all that gets removed because it's temporary in nature when the vehicle's packed up in the evening. Fire safety, mobile food vendors will not park near fire hydrants, FTC inlet connections, fire protection control valves. They have to keep a clear and unobstructed path of 8 feet for any kind of inlet connections. And they also have to have a fully charged fire extinguisher located on the premises of their mobile food dispensing vehicle at all times during operations. Additionally, noise and lighting, amplified music or sounds is prohibited. Outdoor lighting will meet our land development code provision regarding lighting, which is found under section 9.08. Illicit discharge, mobile food dispensing vehicles will be prohibited from any kind of discharging of fat, oil, grease, wastewater in the sanitary system. Spills of oil, fuel, coolant, and similar hazardous liquids are supposed to be contained, immediately cleaned up. Any illicit discharge is supposed to report to the city. This ties into the language in there for having mobile food dispensing vehicles located on impervious sites. That way we can minimize any kind of I&I infill and infiltration into our ground and then down further into our groundwater of anything that could be potentially hazardous. This section provides a mechanism for code enforcement to provide code enforcement related to Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances in relation to mobile food dispensing vehicles and our temporary commercial kitchens. Also note here that the section for mobile food vendors, it's due to the state preemption regarding mobile food Dispensing vehicles, it does not permit non-food related services. So if I was a mobile food dispensing vehicle and I'm providing Norwegian lefse, since my family's originally from Norway, that'd be okay. But at the same time, I couldn't do knife sharpening or sanding of like epoxy materials or something like that, because it's not related to a food-related service. This provision here establishes a mechanism for the city, typically through our Parks and Recreation Department, to provide for mobile food dispensing vehicles to be located on city-owned or leased land. Based on this, the city will establish an operating policy, standard operating policy for how these spaces may be leased out and during what time, what events, and as such. And with the establishment of those operating policies, it can change from time to time based on departmental and city need. These are associated definitions related to mobile food dispensing. We mirror the same definition within state statutes. Otherwise, these are a few different sites that we've taken a look at. This is a mobile food dispensing vehicle, or mobile food dispensing vehicle park in Orlando. There's a location over here in the upper right. I believe that was in Tampa. And then more locally down here on the southern portions, I believe these are both in St. Augustine. That brings me to the end of the presentation. Staff has a recommendation that the Planning and Land Development Regulation Board recommend approval of the draft mobile food dispensing vehicle or temporary commercial kitchens ordinance to City Council. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Albano.
Mr. Hanson, one thing that I didn't see or didn't understand, is there a density in a permanent park? Say, for example, I wanted to build my own permanent food truck park. Is it one vehicle per that 20,000 square feet, or do we have something that can?
The answer to your question, sir, is found under table 4-7. So if I was to develop a food truck park on a principal site, my minimum lot size requirement is 28,000 square feet. My maximum density of mobile food dispensing vehicles is going to be 15, is the cap, unless we have an administrative deviation. But based on the space requirements of 500 square feet and then the separation requirements of 10 feet, that's going to have adjustments on that particular site as far as where they can go. And on a site that requires, as a principal use, it requires a parking facility, it requires common bathroom facility, and shared seating. So there's also outdoor requirements, on-site stormwater retention. So that's going to take up some of the portion of land. So on a site that might be only 20,000 square feet, it might only be possible to get maybe 8 or 10 spaces, where if a larger site, say it's 5 acres, they have the extra room. They might be able to get the 15 plus the extra bonus of 5 with the additional 10,000 square foot per mobile food dispensing vehicle.
To go off of that question also, say somebody hits their max number of 15 spaces, but they own 2 parcels next to each other. Is there any limitations to them developing 2 of these sites next to each other, and what kind of buffer would be in place?
In the draft ordinance, there's no buffer requirement in between a mobile food dispensing vehicle park from one another. As the draft ordinance relates, it'd be permissible use within the zoning district. So if you had 2 adjacent parcels that were both zoned COM2, for example, you could develop a mobile food dispensing vehicle park on yours, and I could do one on mine, and they might be adjacent. Otherwise, if you own both, hypothetically, they both could theoretically be developed to allow for 15 spaces. Otherwise, when you have 2 different parcels that are developed that way, then with that parcel, there's setbacks internal to the area, so they'd have to be separate sites. They'd have to have separate stormwater, separate parking requirements. Now, if they're combined through a binding lot agreement, then it goes back to that 15 with the maximum of, the 5 over with, the extra 50,000 square foot to get the extra 5.
Okay. And then another question I have is with the sound, and they wanted to host, if they had a venue that was large enough and they wanted to host a live band or something like that, would they be able to get a permit to host something? And then also, does this fit the other land use codes, such as a bar or a restaurant or other event places? Are these trucks being more limited than these other venues for outdoor amplified sound?
With outdoor amplified sound, typically with a bar or grill, usually the sound is, for the most part, indoors. Now, there are areas where they have outdoor stages or sound that ties to the city's noise ordinance. So there's a maximum decibel range for that. As far as the requirement for sound with this draft ordinance, it's that mobile food dispensing vehicle wouldn't create any kind of amplified sound. So in regards to that, I suppose you could perceive that to be a higher enforcement standard as far as sound related.
Is there a reason why you're being more restrictive on these trucks than a bar that has a stage out in the back?
The original intent for the sound requirement was related more to a mobile food dispensing vehicle operating as an accessory use going out to another site. So back to my example of having my electronics store. That way, if someone was in the parking lot and they're having a band or a DJ or playing loud music, because there's usually no kind of fences or walls, nothing to really dampen that sound. That was kind of the perceived justification as far as when the initial draft was creating that. Otherwise, if so chose, if you gave us direction, we could take a look at maybe for a principal site to match, we'll meet noise ordinance. But the intent for not having amplified sound was primarily aimed at a mobile food dispensing vehicle operating as an accessory site. So if it was going out to, say, like one of our city parks or something like that where Little League is playing, it wouldn't be distracting to what's going on the actual principal use.
Thank you. Are there any? Yes.
I take it that this process has evolved as a result of the city coming to the decision, the council anyway, that it would be in the city's best interest to accommodate more flexibility for mobile food dispensing vehicles. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. So this process started originally during the summer with the intent that it would only be opened up for properties on public, semi-public, and P&G to be accessory use for at city park sites. Due to that, in discussion with our former community development director, deputy director, Mr. Tyner, he wanted me to and staff to take a look into the feasibility of developing standards for a food truck park site to be a principal use, which we had in the version that went to council on October 28th. And during that meeting, that's when council gave us direction to open up for accessory use on privately developed sites as well.
So this notice and the movement among the vendors, you sought some input from them as well with the 68 people that I remember a number like that. Were they consulted and commenting as to, or maybe we'll hear more tonight, maybe I'm jumping the gun, but.
So initially on, and I personally was brought into the project kind of later on, the ad hoc committee had already started through a group of city staff members that involve and are special event permits. That same group has a list of different vendors for mobile food dispensing vehicles. I was able to get a copy of that to send everybody notice of this draft ordinance, and it equated to about 65 individuals on the list. I believe I did get 3 auto reply rejections from like Mel or Damon, the email address is invalid kind of situations. So it went out to just over 60 individuals. Now, during the early drafting of the draft ordinance, at the time, I did not have access to that full list. We had a number of individuals that we met with that were identified by our former deputy community director as engaged stakeholders to kind of reach out with, and staff made an attempt to reach out. But it was largely after that October 28th workshop, a number of individuals from the mobile food dispensing vehicle community came out to that council workshop and voiced concerns and provided input. So following that, because previously I hadn't had a lot of contact or as far as a means of contacting them, I grabbed everybody that spoke and grabbed a conference room, and we started hashing out for about 2 hours. And I took down email addresses, gave out my card for contact information, and based on the direction that they gave me during that time frame, we were able to draft in some of the changes that they were looking for, in inclusion with the council direction that we received at that workshop. And the draft ordinance in its current incarnation was mailed out to the entire group list that I was able to receive from the special events staff from their registration list about a week and a half ago. So I forget exactly what day, but it's been over a week now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional?
Yes. Did you receive any feedback after sending?
In the email, there was some feedback. An individual stated that thanks, but that they were no longer considering operating within the city. There was another individual that I believe it was Mary Keenan, if I recall correctly, from Original Philly's Cheesesteaks, if I recall, as the food truck operator, was excited about the draft ordinance. There was another individual, Sheila Hines from Sweet Sheila's Funnel Cakes, that was requesting the list of everybody's email address. That information then was sent up to the city clerk for a public records request. That's the majority of the emails that I received back after that initial email went out.
One of the questions I had was with the, if this was to be approved, private property, if we host an event on private property that's just to the people that are attending, we do not need a permit.
That's correct. That is on one of these exemptions set up here on 4.22.01B. So food truck associated with a catered private event, not longer than 6 hours on private land where it's not open to the public. So that covers, as I use the example, if we're having a wedding reception, that would provide coverage in that vicinity, but also something like if you're at a construction site and you're having a roach coach or a gut truck, if it's not open to the public and only providing lunch to your construction crew working on the site, and it's not there longer than 6 hours, it'd also be exempted from this ordinance.
Okay, so then if I do like an open house and I'm opening it to the public, I would need to get a permit. But if you're in you were talking about the planned unit developments. So in a development, I would have to get approval from them, not from the city?
So if you're in a planned unit development, so like let's say a residential subdivision such as, let's take Somerset, for example. They have an amenity center, but within the language that they have within their master plan development agreement, if that development agreement allows for the operation, then they could potentially set up. But with this exception that is said, as long as that event is not open to the public. So I'm not an attorney, but definition of the public, if you're in, say, a community, and if there's a gated community that keeps the public out and it's only available to residents, then I think you'd be protected by this exception.
But if it's an open house that's open to the public, anybody outside of that community could participate.
And then in which case, then you might not be protected by the exception. But once again, as I said, I'm not an attorney, so.
One moment, sir. We have not opened public comment. Thank you.
Chair Shank, just to add on that, I think you're asking very good questions, but really the answers to these are going to be fact-specific inquiries. So I think it's going to be a fact-specific where maybe their involvement with the city and the MPD to discuss, like, hey, do these meet the exception? So it's going to be a fact-specific scenario, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional questions? Seeing none, we will open for public comment. Sir, you may approach. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Charles Hayes. I live on Eagle Harbor Trail. I've been a resident for since 2007. I had a stone and water restaurant at one time in another location, and I think that this is going to upset a lot of the current brick and mortar locations in the city, because they're having a lot more as to liability insurances and inspections and the fire department and all that good stuff that these trucks avoid some of. And the only other comment is I hope that the Board of Health has been geared up for this, because if you have 20 people selling food out of trucks, you're going to need quite a bit of an inspection crew. Thank you.
Thank you. If you desire to speak, please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Keith Durstein, and I am the owner-operator of Cool Beans Barbecue. I've held a license with the city since July of 2017. I have numerous friends in the food truck community, most of them in Palm Coast, Benel. We have been a liaison for these food trucks. And I submit to you that we are highly regulated and highly inspected. I know the state inspector. I know her name. She eats my food. We're all self-contained. We're clean. My wife, Tanya, who's sitting back there, has been very proactive with the Flagler County Rotary, the city of Palm Coast, various communities surrounding here, not just Palm Coast, for the last 9 years. And we are inspected, and we are regulated. I understand the brick and mortar thing. Our plight is to not take business away from anybody. We're making donuts, funnel cakes, barbecue, serving coffee, chicken wings, chicken sandwiches, and we're qualified. We pay fees, just as everybody else does. And if there are any questions as to whether or not that a food truck court, so to speak, would come to fruition, that would be great. My submission would be that let's take the local trucks here and consider them first. I have had phone calls late at night from food trucks that have parked in parking lots, been invited, and did well there as a place to park. And safety cones, all that, I get it. But like I said, we're all self-contained. We take care of our own trash. We take care of our own sewer. We're not dumping anything anywhere. We have a commissary. So moving forward, if you needed any information from whatever food truck you want to contact, they can give you all that information. We've done city events here for the last 8-9 years. Some of them get canceled because there's too many clouds in the sky. But what are you going to do? We're having one this Saturday. Myself and my wife have been asked to be the food truck captain to get all the trucks in place. And we've done all this with no hitches, no problems. Unhook your trailer, park your trailer. We know how to handle that. So we're not putting any burden on all of you folks. So, anything else? Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Thurston. I think you were a great advocate.
Thurston.
Thurston, thank you. Are there any additional members of the public? Please approach.
Good evening. My name is Mary Keenan. I'm one of the owners of Original Philly Cheesesteak Food Truck. I'd like to thank Michael for taking on this project. It's really, he did a great presentation. However, the food truck industry, I think for this area with the way that you're growing in leaps and bounds, I mean, we're local. We're family and veteran-owned business. And there are requirements for all these food truck owners to have the proper liability insurance, vehicle insurance, to be licensed. Everyone that works on our truck in particular, we have the food service manager's licenses. It's a very serious business, and it would be up to the individual that is managing this park to ensure that everyone complies. Because, once again, the food industry, whether it's brick and mortar or food truck, it's a very serious business. I think it would be great to have, St. Augustine, they don't have a food truck park there. You don't have a food truck park here. They have them Jacksonville, they have it in Orlando, and they're very successful. If you have the proper people on the, that's going to run this business, I think it would be really nice for your community. And, a little takeoff from what Keith said, it is nice to have the local businesses because you do have a lot of local food truck businesses here in the area. I just wanted to let you know that I'm very interested. I'd like to partner with the City of Palm Coast in establishing this business and making it successful. I'd like to thank you for your time. Just wanted to give you a little input from my standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
My name is Sheila Hines. I have been in this business for 16 years. I am the owner of Sweet Sheila's Funnel Cakes. I'm sure many of you know me, and I hope you do anyway. I've lived here for over 31 years. When I moved here, that was a drawbridge going to Flagler Beach. So, through the years, I am now retired. I'm a senior. I'm a homeowner. I still have issues with your commercial vehicle ruling. Okay, I'd like to have my trailer in my driveway, my property. So one of the things I would like to say is the gentleman that was up here earlier, what the City of Palm Coast is doing is inhibiting small business from operating. They don't allow us a spot to operate. 65 small businesses. That's what you said, right, 65? Okay, so 65 small businesses are not being allowed to operate in the City of Palm Coast. I don't know how much more I need to say about that. There is something, I'm curious as to why someone on their own property can only have a party for 6 hours. You have a graduation party, it could be noon to midnight. Super Bowl's coming, New Year's Eve. Why is there a time restriction? I'm curious about that. And also the language, excuse me, I'm nervous. You know how we get when we get up here. In the third paragraph down, it relates to food trucks as rogue, R-O-G-U-E. I find that offensive. I'm not a rogue food truck. I would prefer if we could change that language to possibly unauthorized or possibly unpermitted. Rogue is an offensive term. I really have a problem with that. So after all the site plan that we talked about, there's no pricing here. I'm curious as to now what we will do, because at the last meeting, it was mentioned that you had to have a site plan on private property, and of course, state statute states that you can't control us on private property. It's the property owner's right to allow us to be on his property. You're not allowed to make us submit a permit, and it was at $2,000, which is hysterical. I don't know where you think $2,000. Let's see. I sell my funnel cakes for $8. I think I had to sell 280 for $2,000. So I'm just trying to put it all in context here. We are small business. Everybody that's sitting out here today, raise your hands who's got a food truck, please. Okay, you see how many people's here? 15 of us, there's 65 of small businesses that we're not able to do business here. That's all we want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Any other members of the public?
Hi, my name is Wilson Herndon. I'm with Sweet Melissa's. Sweet Melissa can't be here tonight, so Grumpy Wilson's here. They all know me. So we're unique. We have a brick and mortar and we have a food truck or a trailer. And that trailer was bought and with a different intention than some of these people. It's not our primary source of income. But we are taxed, we are insured, we are food regulated. So yes, we are very regulated. We are local. One of my concerns is I didn't get an email. And I don't get invited to a lot of events, but that's fine. One of the primary objectives of that trailer is for community. Right now, it is sitting over there raising money for the Boy Scouts to go to summer camp. I believe the ROTC will be raising money off that trailer. I am providing things for them to sell, small things, not ice cream. But I'm allowing them to raise money, and that's part of our business is to raise money for different organizations. To do that, we also have to make a profit. And in my situation, it's not always a great profit. And I sympathize with some of the people that only have a food trailer. So I did receive an email from the city, but what it did was it prompted me to go and sign up, and then it took me to the public website where all the services are and said, thank you for registering. I was like, well, why did this? So it wasn't like what Mike described, an email where we are signed up or the city acknowledges that we exist. We are local. I would ask that local is absolutely local first. And I'm concerned with how the parks are going to be regulated for food trucks. Are we going to see Orlando food trucks, Daytona food trucks, Jacksonville food trucks show up 10 minutes from my brick and mortar at a park where there's events when I have a trailer that could go out there and work events, raise money for those clubs, So that's my take on it. I didn't see. I'm concerned about local food trucks actually getting treated as local and getting, to work in this community. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments? Seeing none, we will close public comment. We'll return to staff. Oh, yes, public comments closed. We'll return to staff to be able to address some of the questions that were raised. No, wait, excuse me, wait, one moment. I said, are there any additional comments? No one stood. I said, I did not see your hand, and I said public comments were closed. So public comments are closed. Now, what I would like to let you know is that there's a comment card for those of you who did not get to speak. If you write your comments on the card, submit it to Ms. Irene, your concerns will be addressed. So if you complete one of those cards, your concerns will be addressed. Have your contact information on there. Now we're going to give staff, maybe some of your questions will be answered once staff responds to some of the concerns that were raised by those who have spoken. Michael, please. Did you take notes of any? So, of the concerns that were raised?
Madam Chair, a couple people talked about licensing, registration. So, as I mentioned earlier, state statute 509.102 prevents licensing to the state. So, food truck operations are typically licensed with the Department of DBR, so Professional Business
DBPR.
Standards. Additionally, for health safety purposes, that's preempted to the state as well. So, it's going through Florida Department of Health. So the city has no means of establishing further regulation regarding licensing or permitting of it. Now, an individual stated inaccurately that the city can't say what someone could do on their private property. The city, based on that law, is able to establish and create zoning districts that the operation of mobile food dispensing vehicles is permissible or not, and then also establish operational standards for such. So with the draft ordinance, depending on the underlying zoning district that a particular property lies in, would dictate whether or not that property is suitable for a mobile food dispensing vehicle, as additionally as stated earlier that it had to be conforming to the zoning district we're looking at minimum lot size, lot width, making sure that the structure is conforming as well. And then there was an inquiry regarding costs. So as is right now for an mobile food dispensing vehicle operation as an accessory use on a site, the way the draft ordinance reads is that it'd be on a application form created by the city. As such, with this being a draft ordinance, that form has not been created. The intent behind it is that it be highly modified and reduce the requirements for your traditional site plan approval that would be required if a site was developing as a principal use. So the intent with that, we're looking for minimum application standards, which are listed further back here under this 4.22.03 for site plan approval. So you're looking at for sites developing accessory use, it's an application by the property owner or their authorized agent. So possibly a mobile food dispensing vehicle operator could be authorized by the property owner through a notarized document to be able to apply on the form that would be created by the city. And we're looking for a concept plan. So essentially a copy of the site plan showing a location where this mobile food dispensing vehicle is going to be, a statement that talks about how many mobile food dispensing vehicles will be on site, what their hours of operation will be, frequency of operation. So is this going to be an everyday occurrence, or is it going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Is it going to be weekends only? Along with the statement as well, that's signed by the property owner that indemnifies the city against any potential liability. So as is right now, there hasn't been any kind of fee established with such application. The application doesn't exist. The city will probably take a look into that and evaluate what exactly may be required for that based on potential approval and adoption by city council. But as this time is right now, there's no set fee for any potential application for accessory use development.
Thank you. We did also have an additional question about the 6-hour limitation. How did the city come to the 6-hour limitation?
During the earlier drafting, if I recall correctly, when I drafted, I originally, I believe, had a 3-hour limitation. And after consultation with our city attorney, it was at his recommendation that we increased it up to 6 hours to allow for increased use for events. And the justification for 6 hours we're looking at for things like potential wedding receptions, but like if Super Bowl parties, that would cover Super Bowl, where if you watch a Super Bowl, it typically lasts approximately 5 hours unless they go into double overtime.
So if we have already in the ordinance that the hours of closure will be from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., is it necessary to have a 6-hour limitation since we already have that window?
So that window only applies to mobile food dispensing vehicles that are applicable to this ordinance. So that 6-hour window applies to mobile food dispensing vehicles that are exempt from this ordinance.
Right, correct, but I'm saying, couldn't we have that same time frame for the ones that are exempt as well? Because, for example, if someone is having a morning wedding or a family reunion of sorts, and it's an all-day event, limiting it to a 6-hour window, it interferes with that private event. So if we look at limiting it from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., I don't understand the justification for a 6-hour window.
Roger that. So that's the direction that the planning board wants to make for potential amendment, that could be included with the recommendation that this body gives to city council when this item goes for first and second read to city council.
Okay, an additional question was, will food trucks that are registered in other locales be permitted to register here in Flagler County?
So
Or operate here, not necessarily register.
Gotcha. So they won't need to register technically with us due to the state preemption for licensing requirements. The only type of registration, so to speak, would be if we go back to the example that I used for Mike's Electronics Store. If I'm going to have an accessory use for some food trucks, and I have Dex and Angie's House of Barbecue or Mary Keenan's Original Cheesesteak Phillies or some of the other providers, as a property owner, I would probably have how many spaces I have, and then I'm tracking who I have on my site. So if I have someone that shows up to my property that, because if I'm a property owner, I'm going to be having people sign a lease for some type of agreement to operate on my private property. If someone's operating there outside of the scope of what I allow, then it goes to that code enforcement provision. Now, the intent for registration and such, I imagine when the city gets to the point, if they choose, based on the provision that we have in the language, for the city to establish a policy for the operation for a park site, essentially public, semi-public, or Parks and Greenway, this section 4.22.05, that would likely be on a system that the Parks and Recreation Departments already uses for registration. The information that I received as far as contact information had numerous columns of data on it, including addresses for the registered. If they establish some kind of precedent for local vendors, if that's something that is legally defensible, then the city council or planning board can make that recommendation to city council. And then for the gentleman over there for Sweet Melissa's, I apologize, I didn't have your email on the list. It wasn't an email list that I created, but I'll give you my card. That way you send me an email and I'll include you on my list for future emails. But right now, for precedent and local preference, I think that ultimately come down to whether or not it's legal to do so. So I'd have to defer to our legal experts on that.
Okay, and the final comment that
Ms. Chang, I just want to make sure I understood your question. Were you asking that if we can only allow Flagler County food trucks to be here?
Yes.
And not, yeah, so unfortunately, the state statute preempts us for doing that. We would be discriminating against people outside the county. So it would have to be opened up to anyone who is licensed, following all the rules. So either they live in the county, they don't live in the county, still got to be able to offer those services within our city.
So now, if there should happen to be registration fees, would it be permissible to have resident fees versus non-resident fees?
No, we cannot do that either. That's licensed by the state as well.
Okay.
Yes, and if I can add, based on that roster that I was given access to send email notice, since it had those multiple columns, including addresses, a vast majority of the individuals that were emailed for this meeting did have local addresses. I don't have a statistical number, but I would gauge it probably approximately 80%, if not more.
Thank you. And I think one additional comment was the request to change the word rogue to either unauthorized or unpermitted use.
That's not actually part of the ordinance. It's just part of the background for the presentation.
Okay, okay. All right.
So for these, how many local food trucks do we have in town? I know somebody mentioned 65 small businesses. Do we know a number?
The list that I was given was approximately 65 mobile food dispensing vehicle vendors that were at least registered through a special event permit list from previous. Whether there's more than that, we don't have a specific number, at least at the city's level.
Okay.
We can't, if, this is closed for public comment. Thank you.
So to get around, or to try to figure out a way, is there a way that the city can figure something out to issue some type of local permit only that, or limit the amount of permits to push towards our local members first? So when this does, say, get approved and outside vendors find out about this and then they try to come in, is there a way to say, well, hey, we only allowed 20 or 30 or 40 permits, and so as like a, to test the waters type of thing, 40 permits, and then when they try to come in, they're like, well, hey, we've already reached our permit max, and they can't come in unless, and they get on like a waiting list until one person decides to give it up.
Yeah, no, that's a valid question, Mr. Decker. So if you open it up and say local people fill up all 40 spots, that's fine. There's no, that's not breaking any rules. It's kind of like a first come, first serve.
Yeah, so we can establish something that we can do a public notice or an email to the local food trucks that we know and say, hey, we're opening this up to a permit with no fee that says, hey, get on the list now before these outside vendors come in. So that way we're doing a public notice to our residents and our locals, do a mailer to the addresses that are local, and try to get in front of this?
Yeah, the only way I'll add a fact, as long as you're not only sending it out to your local your local food truck vendors and like excluding the like not letting them get a jump at it. Now, if you send them same time, but then also send an extra email to our local vendors, I think that's fine. You know, you're promoting local businesses, right?
Yeah.
But as long as you're not arbitrary excluding, you know, outside vendors, I don't see an issue.
No, of course. And I think if we put it on our website, and I'm pretty sure everybody in this room that has a food truck will talk to their friends and family that own a food truck and will say, hey, get on there and fill it out now. I think we can make something work if that was a way. And then I think that same thing with the Parks and Rec. We do a list that says, hey, if you're registered as a local vendor, or not local, but if you're registered as a vendor within Parks and Rec, you're approved. And we kind of do that same thing to where we get in there to where, hey, these people are approved to go to our city parks. I don't know. You guys are the lawyers.
It's a thought, and I think it's something that we could look at and work through.
Okay.
But I think it's important where you were saying if you put a limit of 40, it's first come, first serve, not necessarily Flagler County locally. And so it's important that we have a vendor registration link, correct, Michael?
That was what the list that I sent out to was from.
So that vendor registration link, Michael has stated, includes people who are not in Flagler County. So if those people get that, they're going to get that same notification. So once, if we limited it to 40, if 25 of those people were from out of Flagler County, then we will be limiting it to only 15 people from Flagler County. So I just want to make sure that we understand that we cannot restrict it just to Flagler County. I really want to make sure you all understand that. So at this point in time, I think that we have our food truck Tuesdays here, and you're known as your reputations that are going to help you to be able to be made aware of what's going on in the community. That's going to give you that so-called preference that you're looking for. But I did want to ask one more question about the fees. Because when we look at the principal use with master plan developments, so if a developer comes in and they identify a section of their development for food trucks, will a food truck who applies to be one of the food trucks participating in that master plan be required, will they be required to apply separately? And if not, then the cost associated with it for quote-unquote registration, is that a part of the development agreement?
So the answer to that can be a little convoluted, can vary. So when you're talking a master plan development, take for example where we're at right now, Town Center. Town Center covers a huge swath of land within the city of Palm Coast. There's multiple different tracks. Each track has multiple properties that have different ownership. If, for example, Town Center was to apply and under unifying ownership for an MPD amendment to change the language to allow for mobile food dispensing vehicles to say operate in track 25. Track 25 is our perimeter commercial track within the town center. And if that was approved, that MPD amendment by city council, then the individual property owners within that track would then decide how they wanted to apply. So if they were looking at it as a principal use based on the language that's put in the development agreement, then they would be able to apply. So once again, with a master plan development, it's essentially like a plan unit development. So it's kind of a design your own zoning district. It allows for some deviations from standard zoning and dimensional requirements that are negotiated between the city and the applicant for an increased public benefit. So if it was going to be set for a principal use, then in this scenario with track 25, then you'd be looking at a potential food truck park. A vacant spot in track 25 happens to be north of Olive Garden, to the east of Ulta and that Target shopping plaza. So theoretically, if that MPD was amended, it would allow development there. Now, with the same MPD development, if it was put in as a permissive use for accessory use, then your individual property owners that say Target, for example, or Panda Express, could then theoretically go through and apply for an accessory use on that form that will be created by the city if this draft ordinance is adopted by city council. So the accessory use is a much less convoluted process than as a principal use, because the principal use does require a site plan approval, but also lands within a master plan development. That process has an additional step as far as providing language within that development agreement that would allow for the mobile food dispensing vehicle use. The only provision that would potentially work around that limitation would be back in this portion, and sorry as I'm going through a little fast, right here under zoning applicability under 4.22.02, with the statement that the utilization of a mobile food dispensing vehicle shall be considered a customary ancillary use of sites developed as a park, performing arts center, or athletic complex within the city. So within, for example, our example of town center, just down the road, we have the stage. Otherwise, at the other end of the lake here, we have our tree lighting area. We've had over a decade of experience having Food Truck Tuesdays here in the city, to great effect. A lot of members of the public have appreciated having mobile food dispensing vehicles at those events. So this statement about being a customary ancillary use for sites developed as a park, performing arts center, athletic complex would allow for the continued use based on the developmental criteria that we have for spacing requirements on a site that's zoned for a master plan development.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Urbano.
I want to commend you, Mr. Hanson, and the city for this adoption request. I think what you guys have laid out is more than adequate. There's never going to be a perfect amendment or an ordinance added, but I think it's a great starting point. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be, if it gets approved, something that's good for the entire community. As far as the additional hours and fees, I think that's something that can still be worked on, but I find that a lot of times we just try to overthink things, and I think that you guys kept it nice and simple, and I think we should stick with what we got in your presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You have an additional comment?
I just want to say I think this is a good idea. I think that if businesses, brick and mortars, are upset because of this ordinance, then they can open up their own food truck, such as Sweet Melissa's has. So I think it's a whole different business plan. So I think that we need to look at the totality of it, not just individual businesses. I've been to these food truck places all over different states, different cities, military bases, everything, and they are amazing. I think it's a great addition to the city. I think it's something that a lot of people have been talking about. And I don't know. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Yes.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea too, but I do have one problem, and I want to bring it back up. It's this 6-hour thing. And you said yourself, Super Bowl, 5 hours. Yeah, but tailgating starts hours before that. You know, weddings sometimes are all-day affair. What if Tom Smith wants to run an event from 10 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night? 6 hours doesn't cut. Why is there a 6-hour limit? That makes no sense to me. You know.
So I think what we can do is just when we go to make a motion, remove that.
I think it should be removed.
Additionally, if I could add for clarification, there is a provision that would exempt mobile food dispensing vehicles associated with a special event permit. So going back to my electronics store or fictional electronics store, with the Super Bowl coming up, I'd be looking at selling a lot of my new OLED televisions and having the Super Bowl played. So I'd probably want to have tailgating at my site. I could put in for a special event permit with the city, and upon approval of a special event permit, then you could have a mobile food dispensing vehicle tied to a special event permit that could be outside that scope of 6 hours as well.
How much is that?
6 hours.
Say again?
You have to worry about putting in for a special event.
So I think we're adding more red tape for no reason. What are the fees for a special event permit that we're making them pay to maybe add 1 hour to the event? So I think we're just beating that question to a dead horse, and I think we just make a motion and remove it.
I agree.
So if we don't have any further comments from the planning board, we can entertain, yeah.
I have a question. Can
Yes.
we go back to the food vendors and ask them what their average hours are at a location?
Well, I think that the principal use hours they're open up until 2 a.m.
No, I'm saying typical food truck. How long are they at a standstill location?
Public comment is closed. Public.
I think the point of public comment is for them to provide comments. If you guys, the chair and the rest, members of the public, remind you that during this time that please keep your comments down unless during public comment to move this meeting along efficiently. If the planning board decides to open this back up for public comment, they can do this. I will also remind you that this is not the last meeting on this item. If anything happens from this item, it goes to City Council where it will have 2 reads. During those meetings, you all will have a chance to go to public comment during those times. So I tell you, this is not the end-all be-all tonight. I promise you that. You will still have say. But it does make this meeting move a little bit longer if there's not people talking during this, because it does affect how we make our transcript. It does affect the people that are listening online. So if we can keep this moving along without the talking, it does help the meeting. So back to planning board. So if this planning board does want to reopen public comment, you can do that by a motion and carrying that along. You do not have to. You do not require. That's something that staff can get during before it goes to that first read to get that information. But that is where your kind of left to right bounds are.
I'll make a motion to open public comment.
Second.
Irene, roll call, please.
Can I amend the motion? I make a motion to open public comment as a collective 3 minutes in total. You know, they can figure out amongst them, and it's a simple one question. How many hours? How many hours do you typically operate at a single location?
So I can amend my motion to open public comment strictly for this question to answer how many hours you're open for business and only that question.
But it's collective 3 minutes total to answer that question. So if the motion passes, then it would be wise for one member to approach the podium to give an answer to that specific question. Okay? So do we have a second to the amended motion?
I second it.
Irene, roll call, please.
Did Mr. Decker make the?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Decker.
Yes.
Board Member Hilton.
Yes.
Board Member Stansel.
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Albano. Yes. Chair Shank.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, we now open public comment. Please state your name and address for the record. And the question is, what are the hours of operation typically?
My name is Jennifer. I'm the owner of Borinquen Caribbeans, and I operate 8 hours a day, 5 days a day.
So you operate 8 hours a day, but is that the general length of time for food truck operators?
It can be different for others, depending on what you cook and what you offer to people, but on my case, it's 8 hours.
So again, because the question is to speak on, you're speaking on behalf pretty much of everyone.
I think we should just have everybody answer for themselves.
But we only have, okay, thank you. We have 2 minutes and 28
If
seconds.
you want to answer, come up to the podium.
So we now have 8 hours.
Hi, Sheila Hines, Sweet Sheila's Funnel Cakes. We work a variety of hours. I'll be at an event in Palatka from 1 o'clock.
Just giving us hours. And then that way we have more people.
We
operating.
work anywhere from 3 hours to 12 hours.
So 8 to 12 hours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next member, please state your name and number, your name and address for the record.
Jolene Spangler Rosamanda, 8 to 12 hours.
Thank you.
Set up and break down too.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the member of the public that would like to state typical operating hours for food truck vendors?
Hi, I'm Helen Zimzak, original Philly cheesesteak, and it's 8 to 12 hours,
Okay,
start to finish.
thank you. Any other members of the public? Seeing none, we close. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Carolyn Loveman. I'm the owner of Southernly Sips Coffee and Espresso, and we typically run about 8 hours also.
Okay, thank you. We will close public comment, return to the board. It seemed like the general consensus is an 8 to 12 hour operation.
This is a good example of why we need to strike the hours limitation.
Can you go to the proposed from the city? The motion.
You're asking for the exception, correct?
No staff recommendation, is that
Staff
what you-
recommendation, so I can make a
No.
motion.
Okay. Oop. No, one too many.
Mhm. It's on the bottom. It's at the bottom.
I'll make a motion for staff approval of the adoption to ordinance 2026. Actually, hold on, let me redo my motion. Make a motion for recommended approval of the mobile food dispensing vehicle and/or temporary commercial kitchen ordinance to the city council with the site noise ordinance should be consistent with other such sites such as bars and restaurants, also removing the time limit of 6 hours.
I second that.
Irene, roll call, please. Let me ask it for discussion. The site noise, I just want to make sure that everybody understands. We were talking about the hours, but Mr. Decker also added about site noise.
What did he add to the site noise?
So that it should be consistent with bars, restaurants, other things, and not be more limiting to the food truck sites.
Okay, thank you. Irene, roll call, please.
Board Member Decker.
Yes.
Board Member Hilton.
Yes.
Board Member Stansel.
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson.
Yes.
Vice Chair Albano.
Yes.
Chair Shank.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move to the next item. Thank you, members of the public. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, the East Hampton Master Plan Development Amendment, application number 6302. Mr. Papa.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening again, Madam Chair. This particular item is a request to amend a previously approved master plan development agreement. I've been asked to pause while things settle down.
Members of the public, if you could exit out quietly so that Mr. Henson can give its next presentation.
Sure. Again, for the record, this next request is a request to amend an existing master plan development agreement. That was the result of a settlement agreement between the city and the property owner in the early 2010s. Mr. Hanson will provide the details of this request, what is being requested to be changed in the master plan development agreement.
Good evening once again, Michael Hanson, Community Development. This particular application is largely known as the MPD for East Hampton MPD. The actual name of the MPD is the CP&HD Residential Lots LLC MPD. The applicants are here. As the slide states here, applicant James Stowers. He's in the room, however, following staff's presentation. We have Dick Smith and Nika Husseini from ICI Homes that will likely add information from the applicant's side. Particular property here, as you can see on the aerials, is at the terminus of East Hampton Boulevard on the west side. The future land use on the property is Greenbelt. The zoning is that MPD, the CP&HD Residential Lots LLC. Now, as Mr. Papa was explaining briefly, when the city adopted the 2020 comprehensive plan, not to be confused with the recent 2050 comprehensive plan we just adopted last year, the 2020 comprehensive plan was adopted back in 2004. It redesignated the land of the subject property from Flagler County's residential low density, which at the time allowed for a maximum density of 3 units per acre, to the city's Greenbelt designation, which limits the density to 1 unit per acre. At that time, the pending property owner, which was MHK of Volusia Inc., which was a subsidiary of ICI Homes, filed a challenge. That challenge was ultimately settled. And in 2009, to give you perspective, the previous owner of MKH transferred ownership over to CP&HD Residential Lots, which is another subsidiary of ICI Homes. Based on that outcome, the settlement agreement, which was attached to the staff report, is from 2012. That agreement limited the maximum residential entitlements on the property to 58 dwelling units. There was also a land swap where the city owned a property. If you're looking at this map here, let's look at the aerial. The northern portion of the property was at the time owned by the city, and the southeast portion, that is of what would be kind of the rest of this square shape, was owned by the applicant at the time. With that settlement agreement, there was a land swap, and where the city gave ownership of the northern portion to the applicant, and the city gained ownership of the southeast portion. And that area is largely wetland area, so the intent was to help preserve it for conservation purposes. As part of the settlement agreement, there was recommendation for the approval of a master plan development. So as I mentioned in the last application, that's a contracted zoning district between the applicant and the city. It allows for deviations to your standard zoning districts. and it ends up getting approved after back and forth discussions and by the city council, sorry. The applicant, however, is currently requesting an amendment to that development agreement of that master plan development with the intent of increasing the residential entitlements to 71 units, which would add 13 dwelling units from the 58 that they already have entitlements to be able to develop. Part of the request would reduce the minimum lot size of 8,250 square feet to 5,500 square feet. So to put in perspective with that, there's provisions in the development agreement that has two different developmental standards. So the lots that are on the perimeter on the north and west side would have a larger size because the applicant's requesting those properties be reduced from a lot width of 80 feet to 60 feet. But it has a depth of 110 feet. So on the perimeter north and west lots, you'd be looking at 6,600 square feet for minimum lot size. The internal lots currently have minimum lot size or lot width of 60 feet, and that request is to reduce it down to 50 feet. So, but still have the 110-foot depth requirement to it. So that establishes the internal lots at a minimum lot size of 5,500 square feet. As I mentioned, the request for reducing the lot width from 60 to 50 and then 80 from 60 as well. To help with that request, the applicant also asked for modification to the minimum side interior building setback, reducing that from 7.5 feet to 5 feet, and the minimum side street setback from 15 feet to 10 feet. I want to draw attention to this reduction from 7.5 feet to 5 feet. The 5 feet on each the side from an internal property from a building to building would create 10 feet, which is the minimum required distance for fire separation before you have to go through additional fire-rated walls. So they're meeting that requirement for the Florida Fire Prevention Code. The surrounding land uses on it, you're largely looking at kind of residential greenbelt future land use to the north and east. Now in the south and west, it ends up in the city of Bunnell. You're looking at single-family low density. And as we go back on the map here for the aerial, it draws kind of a better picture. So further southwest, you're looking at Grand Reserve, which ends up with a higher pack of density as far as residential lots. The surrounding city annex property is largely set up for single-family residential 3 and pockets of single-family residential 2 zoning districts. This image here is what was in the approved master plan development agreement for conceptual site plan, showing a conceptual layout and arrangement for the current entitlements of 58 dwelling units. As this is a conceptual plan, the applicant, if they were to go forward with this application, would still have to go through a plating process. So the ultimate layout could potentially change a little bit, but the intent was to preserve large portions of wetlands that are on the west and south. And then also you see here the chunk that was exchanged to the city on the southeast of this particular site in order so that they could have additional residential units along the northern property. As you can see, it might be a little tough to read. There's the word buffer here along the north and west. So part of the development agreement required 25-foot vegetative buffer before getting to the new residential lots within this development. So buffering from the existing standard zoning district of the city and the existing neighborhood. This provides a little bit of vegetative screening, which helps offset some of the differences as far as lot size. This image here is the proposed concept plan that the applicant provided with the MPD amendment, increasing the overall development from 58 to 71 lots. They're largely still protecting the existing on-site wetland areas that were already laid out. So going back and forth between the two images, the scale is slightly different between the two, but overall the developmental footprint between the 58 units here to the 71 is largely similar. In running these proposed concept plans through a piece of software that the city has called Revu Bluebeam, staff was able to come up with an estimated reduction of developmental footprint of approximately 7,500 square feet in size from the proposed concept plan to the existing concept plan. So they're largely staying pretty close to the same developmental footprint as previously approved with the current MPD. As far as criteria for the approval of an amendment to a master plan development, as the planning board is well aware, pretty much all of our applications have to go through and meet the criteria found under section 2.05.05 of our land development code. There's also the criteria found under land development code section 2.09.04, which is specific to master plan developments. So I'm going to go through these criteria. And so criteria A here, as far as whether or not it's in conflict or contrary to public interest, staff's finding in the original in the staff report stated that the amendment would add 13 dwelling units to the site, existing 58 entitlements, resulting in 71 residential entitlements, which is not a significant increase. Based on the density allowance from the county at the time when it was under county zoning, it would allow for 3 dwelling units per acre. Based on the gross gross acreage of the site, and the existing density of 58 units on the site equates to approximately 1.56 dwelling units per acre. The request to go up to 71 residential entitlements brings that up to 1.91 approximately for dwelling units per acre. So it's still under the maximum gross density that would have been allowed had the city not annexed the property and then designated it for greenbelt. The surrounding city future land use designation for the existing area off of Eric Drive and Ebbtide has residential, and based on the zoning, you're looking at approximately up to between 4 to 5 dwelling units based on the current city zoning between single-family residential 2 and single-family residential 3. So this proposed project has significantly lower density than what's allowed under the adjacent city standard zoning. Now, it's worth noting that when this project was initially approved for an MPD, it had to go through a neighborhood meeting. At that time, there were approximately 190 individuals that attended in standing room only fashion, speaking out against the original master plan development rezoning. Not indifferent to that, staff had the applicant conduct a neighborhood meeting for this amendment. At that amendment, for the neighborhood meeting for the MPD amendment occurred on November 20th over at the Hilton Garden Inn and conference room there. And we had approximately 60 individuals from the public appear. There was a public participation packet included in the staff report that included a sign-in sheet. If I recall correctly, it was approximately 47 individuals signed in the sheet. I attended on behalf of the city and attempted to count heads. However, at that neighborhood meeting, there was kind of a mixture of opinion by the public, with concerns of overdevelopment based on impact of the existing infrastructure and kind of misconceptions thinking that the project would be proposing to extend East Hampton Boulevard south to State Road 100 or potentially somehow connect the development over to US 1. which are not part of this particular project. This request, as I mentioned, is solely to increase the residential entitlements from 58 to 13, or to 71 for 13 new units, and then just the minimum lot size, width, and then setback requirements. The applicant, in the application, they had to address each of these criteria as well. So in the staff report, the applicant provide detailed findings of their own for each of the criteria for section 2.05.05 and 2.09.04 as well. In regards to that, they found that the MPD was approved by the city back in 2012, and the amendment was slightly to modify the density and design criteria to better suit their current plans for the property. They didn't believe that the proposed amendment would be in conflict or contrary to public interest. As far as criteria B here, the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. There is a number of policies that are provided in the staff report that clarify that. As far as policy 1.1.1.3, I wanted to draw on attention to. And that policy reads that measured on a citywide or cumulative basis, the following density and intensity limitations shall be placed on future land use map designations. Greenbelt has a maximum of 50% of the total land area within that future land use map designation citywide may be zoned or developed at a density equal to or greater than 1 unit per acre. So, as I mentioned, the Greenbelt allows a maximum density of 1 dwelling unit per acre. This particular policy was crafted and implemented within the comprehensive plan to allow for flexibility in situations like this arising from a settlement agreement that, based on a settlement agreement, required a higher density allowance than what the Greenbelt future land use designation allows for. Objective 1.1.4 to discourage urban sprawl and promote compact, contiguous development and mixture of land uses. This site is a contiguous pocket of land that was previously approved for 58 residential dwellings. The proposed amendment keeps it within the existing property bounds, and as I mentioned, actually reduces the developmental footprint by approximately 7,500 feet. So that helps reduce urban sprawl by not having the applicant or someone else potentially add those 13 units in a new subdivision of land that hasn't been approved for any kind of residential development. The applicant provided similar policies based on our comprehensive plan in their analysis, talking about land use patterns being required to be efficient, not disproportionately increasing the cost of providing and maintaining public facilities. As it being existing in MPD, there are public facilities such as water and sanitary sewer service that go through the neighborhood and would be able to provide access. So following the potential approval of this amendment by City Council, the applicant would have to go through a plating process, and they'd still be on the hook for impact fees related to those connections as they go through with development. The criteria C is that the proposed development must not impose significant financial hardship on the city. So that ties back into the fact that, as I stated, when this project comes in for a plating process, the developer will have to pay those applicable impact fees, ensure that the city doesn't have any kind of financial liability for the particular project as far as extending those water or sanitary mains. The applicant on their conceptual plan does provide a gravity-fed lift station, if I'm not mistaken, on the northeast portion of the property to help with flow for their sanitary. Criteria D is that the proposed development must not create any kind of unreasonable hazard, nuisance, or constitute a threat to the general health, welfare, or safety of the city. As the project already has approval for 58 dwelling units on the site, the proposed amendment adds 13 dwelling units, which is a relatively small amount, as the site is approximately 37.17 acres in size. They're able to meet the Florida Fire Prevention Code building separation requirements, as I mentioned, based on their amendment. During the planning process, the city staff will review and evaluate the proposed project to ensure compliance with all applicable codes regarding the city's land development code, comprehensive plan. You're looking at state statutes, Florida building code, Florida fire prevention code. You're looking at federal accessibility design standards, environmental considerations and requirements by the St. John River Water Management District. And then as the project would have to go through plating approval, that process then would go through subdivision master plan, preliminary plat, and then final plat approval. So there are a number of different applications following the potential amendment to the MPD. Criteria E here, the proposed development must comply, meet all applicable local, state, federal law, statutes, ordinance. As I mentioned, that ties into, as it goes through the process, it has to meet all of those applicable local, state, federal agencies. Now, as far as the MPD amendment, it ties into the Growth Management Act based on state statute, provides language that this application is consistent with our comprehensive plan, and the language within our land development code for the MPD zoning district. Now, going to the next page here, here's the criteria that I mentioned that are unique for master plan development, found under section 2.09.04. The first criteria piece is that it's consistent with our comprehensive plan. That's almost a carbon copy from the last set of criteria. So yes, the application is consistent with our comprehensive plan. The criteria B, that it's consistent with the general intent of the LDC. So in regards to that, the standards were established, were found consistent with the general LDC. There's the already existing approved master plan development on the site. This proposed amendment provides that perimeter lots match the lot width requirements for the single-family residential 2 zoning district. The city on a whole allows for zoning districts that, and with also some master plan developments, have lot widths smaller than the 60-foot requirement for this amendment. You're looking at some areas of 50-foot or sometimes even less than that. So the requested lot size is slightly smaller than that single-family residential lot size at 5,500 square feet. However, we do have a zoning district that allows for a 5,000 square foot minimum lot size. So as this is kind of a build-your-own zoning district with a master plan, it still meets elements of our land development code as far as in kind of the bounds of what would be considered normal for residential lot size. Now, it's smaller than the adjacent perimeter lots to the north and west, but as I remind the planning board, the required 25-foot buffer has not changed. There's also a drainage easement as well on the northern property bounds that adds some separation as well from the existing developed properties in the east section compared to this particular project here for the MPD. Criteria C here is any kind of departure proposed development from surrounding areas. So as we talked about the adjacent single-family zoning, you're looking at single-family residential 2 and 3 zoning districts, allow for maximum range of 4 to 5 dwelling units. This application, as I mentioned, we're looking at a gross density unit per acre at approximately 1.91 with 71 dwelling units on the overall site, which is substantially lower. The lot size requirements for single family 3 would require 10,000 square foot, and lot size for single family residential 2 requires 7,500 square feet. So the proposed dimensional standards of lots ranging from 5,500 to 6,600 square foot are smaller, but as I mentioned, there is that language in there for the buffer. The current MPD requires a minimum lot size of 8,250 square feet. Otherwise, the lot width is fairly compatible with the single-family residential 2, requires a minimum lot width of 60, as I mentioned, but single-family residential 3, you're looking at typically, I believe it's 80-foot wide lots. Let's see, criteria number D here for compatibility with the development relationship with surrounding neighborhood. As the MPD amendment proposes smaller lot sizes than currently allowed, it's a slight further departure. However, there's that residential landscape buffering. The applicant states that with their redesign layout, it provides for greater stormwater retention on site for the area. As I calculated out, the developmental footprint is approximately 7,500 square feet, smaller than the currently approved one, even with the increased number of lots. That buffer helps provide some kind of transition between the existing neighborhood and the proposed MPD. Criteria E, you're looking at that this project would have to submit for a preliminary plat. At the time, they'll do a concurrency analysis. Will be required to determine adequacy of available infrastructure to serve the project. As I stated, we have available water and sanitary mains within the reasonable ability for the project to connect. It'll be subject to impact fees for the connection. This project as residential will be subject to fire impact fees and also recreation impact fees for parks and also school concurrency. Now, the applicants already reached out to Flagler Schools to evaluate school concurrency, and they've already provided a letter of determination that states during the planning process, the applicant will have to do mitigation for school concurrency based on the current fish capacities for the middle and high schools in the area. Now, criteria F here, you're looking at that the developer plans to build the project in one phase. So there's no real developmental phases for as far as being able to stand your own. They're looking at if they get this amendment to come through, they'd be going through the planning process to be able to try and get approval to come in and start constructing. And based on my conversation with them, it sounds like they're trying to move pretty quickly overall. These are the other continued criteria for the master plan development section. So criteria G here, you're looking at the project is access via East Hampton. East Hampton is the sole access to the surrounding neighborhood. So the project was previously allowed for 58 dwelling units on site that they theoretically could come in for plating and build out at 58 dwelling units. The amendment here would add 13 units. So you're looking at a slight minor increase to traffic. With that extra 13 units on there, the applicant did provide a traffic study for the application, which was included with the staff report. Public participation that we received during the neighborhood meeting and public hearings for the original rezoning and during the recent neighborhood meeting indicated a strong desire from the public that East Hampton Drive is not punched through to State Road 100. I wanted to reiterate that that is not included with this project. The applicant does not control the lands that are in between where East Hampton Drive is and State Road 100. That's held by a third party, so it's not part of this particular project at all. Now, as far as the E section in general, the primary way in and out of the E section is through East Hampton. Now, there's not really a secondary access. The city's in the works of attempting to secure a stabilized emergency secondary access for emergency vehicles to come into the area during an emergency. However, that's outside of the scope of this project and not actually tied to this project. It's located, some of the areas that they're looking at are located further north of the east section. But that's still in the works. Criteria H here, you're looking at the MPD was drafted based on discussion and input received from the surrounding community back in the time of 2012. At that time, they did not want any type of recreation. I looked at some of the transcripts and language that was provided from that neighborhood meeting. The MPD that was approved did not require any recommendation. This proposed MPD does not further provide any kind of additional public benefit that has been included with the project outside of what the applicant's trying to discuss with their analysis that it would essentially provide for greater stormwater retention and accounting for the overall stormwater and smaller developmental footprint for this project compared to what's currently sorry, a little tongue-tied, a lot of talking tonight, proposed. Criteria I, you're looking at impact on natural resources. The request is a minor increase in the density, but it's similar in scope to other residential MPDs. And with the proposed conceptual plan compared to the existing conceptual plan, they're largely protecting the existing wetland areas. And based on our evaluation for the developmental footprint, they're actually smaller, slightly smaller, about 7,500 square foot. And with the plan, they're able to help try and protect some of the wetland area of to the northwest of where the city property is after the land swap occurred following 2012. Criteria G, let's see, J here. The project meets the LDC in compliance to protecting natural resources. That'll be further evaluated during subsequent plating applications for the subdivision master plan, the preliminary plat, and final plat to ensure that those compliance is met. Criteria K, you're looking at the proposed project will provide jobs during construction of the project, provide housing to the residential or for residents. So you're not looking at a significant impact for economy outside of the scope of the construction of the project, but it would potentially allow for additional residential units for people working in the community potentially. Finding summary. As I mentioned, the project has entitlements for 58 units. The amendment has 13. The amendment can meet meets the developmental criteria found under 2.05.05 and 2.09.04. Unique to this application, though, because the project is tied to an entitlement limitation imposed by the settlement agreement. But the MPD approval is subject to the settlement agreement being amended. So amended language for the settlement agreement was included with the staff report as an attachment. And due to that settlement agreement requiring approval, staff does not have an actual recommendation for the master plan development amendment. In public participation, I've keyed on this during the presentation. The applicant met all the public participation notification requirements for a neighborhood meeting. They placed the placard requirements, paid for the legal ads for the project to be heard for planning board here tonight. At that Hilton Garden Inn meeting on November 20th, and there were 47 members of the public sign-in sheet, and then based on my count, it was approximately 55 individuals, not including the 3 representatives for ICI that are here with us tonight and myself. And then staff, at the time of writing this, received 2 additional emails from the public requesting access to application materials for that neighborhood meeting, which staff provided the same day. Where it says staff has not received further public participation at this time, there's been a few inquiries from the public regarding whether or not this item was still scheduled for tonight, which staff was able to reply back to those individuals to let them know that this meeting was still scheduled for tonight. Outside of that, as I mentioned, there is not a staff recommendation, so the Planning and Land Development Regulation Board may determine the proposed MPD's amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan, recommend approval to City Council, or determine that the application is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and recommend denial to the City Council. I do want to make sure that the planning board is aware that this is a quasi-judicial matter. You'll have to disclose any ex parte communication. Now, the planning board, as the land planning agency for the city, is able to make an alternate findings of fact from what staff has presented at this public hearing, and based on the evidence presented here during the public participation and the documentation that the applicants provided. So when the planning board is making a recommendation either for or against a project, please ensure that your recommendation is based on competent substantial evidence based on the criteria found under sections 2.05.05 or 2.09.04 and is not capricious in any nature. I will yield for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go to the planning board. Are there any questions for staff?
Does the applicant have a presentation?
Right. Sorry about that.
They do. So if you don't have any questions for me right now, we can go ahead and introduce the applicant, and I can pull up their PowerPoint for you.
Okay. Will the applicant please approach, state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the board, Dick Smith, ICI Homes, 2379 Bevel Road, Daytona Beach. I'm also joined with Nika Hosseini, also with ICI Homes. First of all, I'd like to thank staff, very comprehensive staff report and also presentation by Michael. At the risk of being redundant, I just want to highlight a couple of things that Michael did mention. First of all, the staff report clearly indicates that the application is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Also want to reiterate this is an infill project with an existing development order. Michael, could you go to this? Yes, that one. Thank you. The one thing I did want to point out on the, or a couple things I did want to point out on the conceptual plan. If you notice, there are two entrances on this particular plan. The current plan that we're proposing to be attached to the development agreement only has the one entrance. It also has less impacts, wetland impacts in particular. And then I also wanted to point out that this has a self-contained stormwater management system with curb and gutter, which is different and better in terms of the development standpoint than the surrounding neighborhoods. Michael, if you'll go to the next one. On the left side, all the items that Michael indicated that this application is about. From the comments that we got at the neighborhood meeting, wanted to make sure that that some of the issues that did get brought up, this is not a change in the development footprint. There is an increase in traffic of 10 a.m. peak hour trips and 12 p.m. peak hour trips. Our traffic engineer determined that's a de minimis increase. There's no increase in environmental impacts or stormwater discharge from the site. This is not a precursor to vehicular access from US 1 or State Road 100, and it's not a reduction in the minimum house size. And also, based on our experience, we are a local builder, and our experience, this is not going to result in a reduction of house values. This is very consistent with the lot configurations that we do in all of our new developments. You may be familiar with Plantation Bay, which is our flagship community in the nearby. We have 5-foot setbacks in the majority of that project, and we also have 50 and 60-foot lots in there. And anybody who's been there would say that that's a high-value property. And that is what we're trying to, what we'd like to do on this project to make it more economically feasible and to help move this project along. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll return to the planning board. Have any questions?
So why wasn't this decided in the settlement, and why are we bringing it up now?
Primarily, it's a change in market conditions. I mean, that was a while back. As you know, there's been an extensive increase in cost of to build housing, and this makes this project much more feasible.
Excuse me, ma'am. Public comment is not open as of yet. Thank you.
Regarding the settlement agreement and the history of it, I personally wasn't around here with the city back then. However, with the allowance for density at the time under the county's future land use for low-density residential would allow 3 dwelling units per acre. When the city annexed it and assigned Greenbelt, that would have reduced it down to 1 dwelling unit acre. So the fact that it was set up through litigation and settlement agreement, I can only presume that the individual case for litigation was set up for a potential takings clause for the developmental potential of the site, and the settlement agreement was set up to settle that outside of an actual takings clause and potential financial impact to the city.
Thank you. Are there any questions, any additional questions from the planning board? Yes, Mr. Albano.
So these would fall under, even though it's an MPD, would fall under SFR 2, which would make the rear yard setback 6.5 feet?
That's not exactly accurate. In the staff report, the proposed, there's attachment for the actual MPD. It has the rear yard setback in there. If I recall off the top of my head, I think it was 10. However, I don't have it directly in front of me.
10 to the house or 10 to the pool? The reason I'm getting this is I have a feeling there's a lot of people that are talking about properties in their backyard. So we have a 25-foot buffer, and then we have a property line. So I'm trying to come up with a theoretical distance between the back of a pool to the back of a pool.
So the master plan development agreement does not mention swimming pools at all. So because it doesn't specifically state the distances for swimming pools, it would default back to the land development code, which is found for pool setback requirements is found under chapter 4. So the rear setback would go to the building setback of the principal structure. So you're looking at your home.
All right, so it also talks about 125 trips per day increase for the extra 13 dwelling units. What is the increase on utility usage? I don't believe was mentioned in here.
At this particular time, as far as the increase for utility consumption, that would likely be evaluated during the preliminary plat process. That's more technical in nature. Otherwise, if the applicant has information, that they have for potential increase, but the city has the availability for existing capacity. It's just the applicant would have to, pay their impact fees for the application and go through with that project.
All right, because it does increase the usage on our utilities. It also, the property size isn't decreasing, so you're not going below 1,200 square foot. And then what water treatment system station is this assigned to?
At this time, we would have to get back to you and confer with the utilities department on that.
Okay, because I think that has a huge impact on what we decide up here. If we don't have numbers to say that our water treatment system, if you're on water treatment system 1, which is already maxed out, and if this is assigned to it, and we agree to say, hey, let's add 13 more properties to it, we're already maxed out as it is, and then we're adding 58 dwelling units plus another 13. So I think we need to look at that before we make any decision on anything. Same with impact to water. Stormwater systems, obviously, they have to create their own for stormwater system, but I think all those numbers need to come in. The only number we have right now is the numbers for trips per day, and then also with the school system, their report shows that this increase, our schools are at capacity already. So you're adding 6 to one school, 4 to another, 6 to another, and 2 of those school systems are already maxed out with the current system, and now we're adding additional proposed students, and that's if they use the minimum numbers that they've put on here. So I think that has something that we have to look at also.
Understandable, and clarification for your questions regarding utilities, as this project is an ordinance to amend the master plan development agreement. The project would go to city council for a first and second read, at which point utilities department is present at that meeting, and they'd be able to clarify a response for utilities-related questions, at that time at least.
Thank you. Any additional questions?
If I understand this correctly, there is a current development order for the 58 units, is that correct?
So this project had a development order for the MPD itself, granting a residential entitlement of 58 dwelling units. The application, from my understanding, started a plating process, got to a preliminary plat process, and then and stop me if I'm wrong, but they took a look at it as far as market feasibility, and that's when they decided to submit for application for the MPD amendment to increase the density to 71.
So if the board approved 58 homes today, or recommended to the city council today, they have everything in their end to start with their site plan reviews and that?
That's accurate. So if the city council were to deny the ordinance, the applicant still can submit for their application to develop 58 residential lots on the property.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the board? Seeing none, we're going to open for public comment. Thank you.
I'd like to reserve time for rebuttal after public comment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
One moment. I'm going to pass the gavel. I need to go to the ladies' room.
Please state your name and your address.
You want me to start? I didn't know if I was waiting.
Yeah, no, she just passed the gavel, so you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, please state your name and your address.
Marcelo Oliver. I'm on 23 Egan Drive. Yeah, I moved here about 4.5 years ago, right in the middle of all that escalating of house pricing and everything. This a little bit sounds to me like a Trojan horse. If this is all about money, they want more houses because they want more money. It works out financially. I understand, it's a business, that's what you do, right? They should have built the houses in 220 because they would build 58 houses. They'd make more money then than they're making now. Right now, my house sits right across from that, and I have that main waterway, the egress that goes through when the storms come through. And my street is usually not flooded, right? But if it rains and rains and rains, we get a big storm comes through, it gets to the top. And last year before, it came over the street. All that water runs right into that property. So you put all those houses on there, now which we can't stop 58, but you put another 13, it's not going to improve the situation. It's just going to hurt the situation. The pricing on the house, I don't know where, I mean, they're pulling something over us. Mine has 12,000 square foot lot. You're talking about a 5,500 square foot lot? And a 5,500 square foot lot's going to be the same value as my house? How is that possible? If you go into just anything, go into Zillow, right? You go into Grand Reserve, their lots are 5,500 to 6,500 square foot lots. You can't find a single house that's over 2,000 square foot in there, and not a single house that's going to sell over 300. So I don't see how this math that they're saying that's not going to affect us is going to come to affect us, because it is. That's just the way it is. If we go back to when this was approved in 2010 or 12 or whenever that was, when you said that there was like 100 and some odd people standing room only, if they would have heard 71 houses and a lift station back there, I bet you this would be a different discussion than we're having right now. And another thing I just realized when he showed the pictures is that lift station wasn't even in the original plan. It's in the new plan because they know there's an issue with pumping all that out and managing all that. Just on 13 houses, there's a problem. So there's probably a problem existing even with the 58. But, you know, and that lift station is going to be right behind somebody's house that didn't plan to have a lift station there. Maybe they planned to have another property or something, but not a lift station. Yeah, so drainage is a problem, and I think this is just profit. And the thing is if they get approved, they're going to build their houses, make their money, they're gone. We get to stay with the problem for the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Please state your name and address
Kenneth
for the record.
Cunningham, 180 Eric Drive. A little nervous, but I've been in Palm Coast for quite a while. I'm an avid runner. I raise money for service dogs for veterans. I probably log about 50 miles a week, 60 miles a week out here. I love this town. It looks beautiful. I'm on the verge of tears talking about it. But this, 58 homes, I know it's, or 50 whatever homes, I know that's going to happen. I get it. But everywhere I look when I run, I love it. With the exception of town center, I'm not really thrilled about that, but hey, it's progress and I understand it. But we're upsetting the balance here, and I understand that there's a green space, and I understand that there's measures being taken to try and mitigate that. However, I don't think it's effective. You're building a subdivision, you're adding a little more volume, you're decreasing the size of the lots to 1/8 of an acre. It just, 1/8 of an acre to me, I mean, I have a 1/4 acre lot. Actually I have 3. But it's, to me, we're undersizing it. It has the potential of creating a sore thumb or a sore spot. And in addition to the fact that you've got now a neighborhood with smaller setbacks, and I understand the fire code's being complied with the materials being used. You got smaller setbacks, the houses are closer together. In a subdivision where you only have one way in and one way out, and from an emergency services standpoint, to me, that's a little risky. I used to be I was a volunteer firefighter up in Alaska. I had my red card, and those are some things that I look at. I look at a lot of on the lot that I'm on. I look at a lot of that, and that's why there's a lot of spacing. There's a lot of gardening that's been done. A lot of landscaping's been done to make sure that the fire-wise is complied with, to help my neighbors and help my home. That being said, a 25-foot vegetative buffer, the hazards, in my opinion, the hazards of such a small setback, that alone, in addition to Mr. Decker's contribution of the lift station, the utility data, and I understand that comes up in the plat review, but again, these are all valid questions to ask before we allow more units. I think that actually that's in violation of Condition D, or at least it should give us pause to look at Condition D on it creating an unreasonable hazard or nuisance for the health and welfare of others. Thank you very much, Madam Chair and the board. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
James Durser, W section. We're missing the point here. Infrastructure. Well, City Council has not approved any new projects in the past year, and all the ones that have been approved, they're all filled up. We have too many people in this town, no way to move them around. And just even 71 lots, that's another 142 cars at least on the road in a section that has only one way in and one way out, all right? We've been promised, turn-off lanes, road expansions, modifications to our roads. It's in the works, it's in the works. Nothing's working. It was supposed to be started like September, October, all these roads. Look at Royal Palm and Town Center Boulevard, Town Center and Old Kings, all the backup there, all that traffic, and Royal Palms and Belterre. Driving around this summer, I thought the snowbirds were here. That's how much traffic it was. They could not get around town. And there's a lot of bad drivers in town. None of them in this room. It's other people around this town that don't know how to drive. And it's really bad. There's a lot of volume on this road. Today was crazy, just at 1:30 in the afternoon. Where is everybody? State Road 100, I know that's not our problem, but when they did that, they didn't do it correctly. They need to modify that. That was supposed to have been widened and made better for all the traffic that's down there now. We just need to stop building houses and get these roads and the infrastructure done so we can move people around before we bring any more people into this city. I think I covered it all. Please, stop building, don't approve this, because City Council is going to have the headache trying to deal with this, and they're going to hopefully shut it down too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies of the board, gentlemen. How you doing?
Good evening.
I just want to know one thing. When is enough enough? Okay?
Can we get your name, sir?
I'm sorry?
We get your name
Tommy
and
Schwan.
address?
I've been beautiful Cypress Knolls. How you doing? All right? I just want to say that I live there. I got Grand Reserve behind me. I go up to the corner on East Hampton and Eric, where I live, now you're gonna put this in there. You know, like I said, 2012 was established, they had like so many things they were putting in there, houses, whatever. Now they got greedy, now you wanna put 13 more in there. When's enough enough? I never seen so many storage places in my life, and I'm from New York. Honest to good God, I see that all over the place now. These houses are going up like you don't even wanna know. The house that you're gonna put this, pump behind a house, whatever it's gonna be, she just built this house a year and a half ago. She's got no backyard now. That's gonna go right in her backyard, okay? It's not fair. Everybody's wallets out to here, except the people who live in Cypress Knolls. The wallets are down to here now. Who's making the money? We ain't. It's too much. It's got to come to a halt somewhere along the line. This place is getting like Orlando. Me and my wife were living down here over 21 years from New York. I retired from New York City Sanitation. She retired from up there. She was just retired from the schools after 20 years down here, okay? It's getting like Orlando down here. And like I said, with the driving, people see stop signs. It don't mean stop. It means step toe on pedal. Just right through the light, that's it. No one knows how to drive that. And God forbid if it snows down here, I'll never leave my house. Because people do not, they look through the wheels, not over the wheels, okay? They don't know how to drive. I won't take much more of your time. I just want to let you know that it's crazy down here, and people are getting like aggravated, and it's no good. It shouldn't be. This is supposed to be a retirement town, okay? Altair is like a racetrack. It's like a parking lot. Everywhere you go, people coming in, going out the wrong way, coming in the wrong way. I like the way you talk. You know what you're talking about. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Greg Norton. I live at 161 Eric Drive, so I'm in the middle of all this. And I've been at both meetings, the early one in 10 and the one 2 weeks ago. The one in 2010, the residents got an agreement where, because the present owners threatened to put apartment in there, so it was agreed we'd accept houses, but the houses had to be like our houses, especially lot size. That's where you've got your agreement where the town changed wetlands for drylands. Otherwise, that property would be useless if that didn't happen. So I ask you to go look around our area and our town in Cedar and a little screwy, where we live in the east section. You'll notice that our lots are a lot bigger and our houses are a lot bigger than what this gentleman's numbers proposed to you. I question a few of the reality of those numbers, what they really are.
One moment. Oh, please hold comments, public comments.
Do me a favor, this is money-led. For the reason for this, they have to add these 12 homes, potentially, I've been told, to make it profitable, otherwise they may sell the property. So that's why the big push for these 12 homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and the board members. My name is Anna Eisman. We're a 4-year resident of Palm Coast. We thought we were coming to a really nice area, but unfortunately, we have found a lot of different changes happening that we're not pleased. It's upsetting to me that we didn't know anything about this development. So a question I have is whether you can answer or not, whether it's 58 homes or 71 homes, is this happening no matter how upset we are? Or it has to be approved, the 58 homes versus 71? So this is going to happen, whether we like it or not. It's 13 more homes. You're looking either at 116 new vehicles or 142 vehicles, assuming that everyone has 2 cars per home. There is one entrance to that particular section of the Cypress Knoll area. We have a lot of traffic as it is. There is no regulation in traffic, even though we have a 30-mile zone. So with these new homes, the traffic in the East Hampton is going to be even crazier, one. our roads haven't been repaved in this east section. Probably 1 or 2 roads have been done, but there is more traffic coming. Has the city given some thought to all these new homes and all these new vehicles coming to the area? This gentleman mentioned that the schools are already at capacity. So why are we allowing more developments in an area where should be single individual family homes building, not necessarily developments? And, well, they are single homes, but it's a big development coming all at once. It's not like a new home here, a new home there. And the infrastructure in Palm Coast is not here. Why do we keep building more homes? I don't know whether these homes will be cement or whether they'll be stick homes. I know there is no hurricanes in this area, but if we were to have hurricanes affecting this area, we already have ground reserve in our backyard. All those homes are going to fly over us. So we need to have some kind of control as to how we're building this city. And being that you are the Planning and Land Development Regulation Board, I ask you to please, please think about all the consequences you're causing to the residents that are currently living here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The E section,
Please state your name and address for the record.
Paul Eisman, 73 Eric, her husband, number 2. The E section is an area of individual homes that were built by many different builders, and it's very different than most of Palm Coast. From what I've seen, we've been here 4 years, and we bought in the neighborhood. We like the neighborhood. We don't like the single exit. We were told that was going to be changed. That hasn't happened in the 4 years we've been living here. But the exit to...
Sir, please speak to the planning board.
I'm talking about the exit, one exit from the neighborhood, not an increase in roadways, but the widening of the exit, the control of the traffic light that controls traffic. It's always a nightmare trying to get out of the neighborhood during rush hour. Dick told me that the houses are going to be built out of cement block, which is a plus, but my wife mentioned it, we're worried about Grand Reserve. I own an insurance adjusting firm. I've been an insurance adjuster since the early 70s. Handle property, and if we have a major storm in this city, Category 2 or above, you're going to have thousands of empty lots, because most of the properties are going to blow away, and I don't care if the building code is met. The building codes here are not equivalent to South Florida, where we came from. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charles Hayes, and I live on Eagle Harbor Trail. I started in the C section in Palm Coast, and over a very short span, I learned that the E section was where I wanted to be. And so I relocated to the E section, and I've been there since 2007. And this lot size is the thing to me. There's an image, there's a aura. It's an old established neighborhood that has a certain look and a certain feel to it. And I think by cutting the lot size and putting these extra 13 homes in, that's going to be very disruptive to the whole Cypress Knoll area. And so I just want to say that I understand the 58 are coming. That's been approved, even though we fought it. I was at a couple of the meetings too. But I don't think this 13 and the tiny lot size is warranted for the E section. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name's Benny Ruiz, and I live on 13 Egan Drive in the E section. I'm coming as a pedestrian and bike rider. You know, I understand he bought the property fair and square. The city buckled and gave him the 58 homes. The problem I have is even right now, walking down Hampton or riding your bike you're taking yourself, you're taking a risk. You add that much traffic and school kids and people trying to get to work in the morning, and it's going to be a disaster. I don't care what they say. And the second thing is, why are they even allowing this? They should be, I know you hate to hear this, there should be a hold until the infrastructure catches up. You can't have him building 58 homes and saying, I need water and sewer, where am I going to get it from? Oh, I'm going to take it from section 1, and the health, whoever's on there, they're going to have to deal with it. Well, I don't know how the big plan in Palm Coast worked, but if you tell Palm Coast, hey, we can build everything here, but we're not going to give you the infrastructure, it doesn't make sense. It should have been in lockstep, and we didn't do it. And now we're paying it at the when we get our bills, when we get our service. The water's terrible. I mean, now you're adding another 58 homes, plus they want to add more, which is going to take into what we have already. The rubber band can only stretch so far, and it's going to break. So my thing is, I'd put a hold on the whole thing if it was me. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ira Strauss, 11 Ebtide Drive. And we bought our property and we built our home in 2002. So we're on the back on those maps. We're on the back, we're the west side of our property. So our back is that whole thing. We look out our back door and we have the 10 acres that we look at. Now we understand the redesignation. I was there in those meetings also in 2010 or 2012. And we understood that changes that came, they were probably inevitable in the settlement. And at that point, the density was set at 58. So now ICI, and the representative told me at the neighborhood meeting that we went to a couple weeks ago, he says, okay, to develop this property, it cannot be economically workable without increasing the density. And as people talked about, the home values and the property values, they don't line up with what they're saying. So our home value is going to be lessened because ICI needs more profit. And that's not acceptable. If you look on the new plot map versus the old one, we're one of the properties now that instead of having a nice, well, again, inevitable, big property and another house behind us on the other side of that 25-foot palmettos and pine trees, now you're going to have 2 properties. And so this is going to mean you're going to have more issues with the home value going down. Anybody coming and looking at my house to say, hey, is this worth what it is? They're looking at a fence line, and they're looking at 2 houses, and the light pollution, and everything else, and the noise, and whatever else may be happening from now having 2 properties behind me, when originally, at least in the prior agreement, there was only 1. So request that you honor the original settlement and recommend denial of this amendment to the City Council. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carla Amaral. I live on Palm Harbor. The applicant is asking for a 22% increase. The 13 units doesn't sound like much, but that is a 22% increase, and yet we still do not have an ordinance for a workforce housing density bonus program. Had we had an ordinance for a density bonus program, some of these units, if this was approved, could actually have been for workforce housing. Our teachers and our firemen and our policemen can no longer afford to live in this community, and it is a shame that they cannot live where they work. As a board, you can do something today. You can recommend that the City Council direct staff and the City Attorney to prepare an ordinance establishing a voluntary workforce housing density bonus program, including options for fee in lieu of on-site units, consistent with the comp plan and Florida statutes. You could also recommend amendments to the housing element of the comprehensive plan to expressly support density bonuses, alternative compliance options, and other incentives for affordable and workforce housing. There are some things happening behind the scenes, but if you did some motions today, it would signal that this board is for workforce housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Robert Coverly. I've been here since 2000. I built a house on the corner of Egan and Egret. Back then, we had to jump through hoops to build the house. We built it. What I don't like is when people come to an agreement and a contract. I don't know how else, I won't say it. And then can't stay committed to it. Every other place around, with lawyers and everything else, this is what we agreed to. That's what they should stay to. If you turn it down today, 10 years from now, when they come back, we can only do it with a high-rise. It's not economical. Big deal, 58 houses, that's it. You haven't kept up the infrastructure of this town. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
You got to keep them to the original agreement.
Thank you.
Janet Gann, 25 Egan Drive. I also have an issue with the 5,500 lot size. That's about half the size of the standard lot, so that, I think, compromises the neighborhood. And the comparison to Plantation Bay, where they have those same small lots and how they're very valuable, I think that may be true there, but I don't think it's really apples to apples, because the Plantation Bay has a lot of amenities. It's a totally different kind of neighborhood. So I think this tiny little lots in our neighborhood would cheapen our neighborhood. So hopefully, I mean, I believe ICI is a very good builder, so I'm happy about that. And if they had larger lots, maybe the houses would be more valuable. They could make their money that way. And already, I believe the town swapped the wetlands for the better area and gave them more land to work with, and already did all those compromises to get the 58 lots. So again, like the gentleman that just spoke, I think they say they want to make more money, but hopefully they can make enough money with the 58. And the drainage I also worry about. I think the more lots, the more issues with water. Our street is already very wet, and our swales are very full. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ed Case, and I live at 23 Egret Trail in the east section, Cypress Knoll. I've been there for 11 years. Before I came here, I spent quite a bit of time, because I have family in the area in Palm Coast, and my decision upon buying a house would be to buy one in this section. For the reason of the continuity of the type of housing, it's a very, very nice neighborhood. In my opinion, unless you want to be on a canal, it's the best neighborhood. And that's why I live there. This would be, I also want to say that most of the houses in the east section are 80-foot frontage and 125 feet deep. So they're about 10,000 square feet. Some lots are larger. I don't know of any that are smaller. Some lots are corner lots, so they're like 13,000 feet. To propose, first of all, I guess way before I ever came here, the city made a negotiated agreement with a developer at that time. A hard-fought and difficult decision to come to, but that was a decision that they did come to, and that should be lived up to. I would heartily encourage you to not approve this variance. Many of the homes, and they're all very nice homes in that area. Some are older, some are brand new. Many have pools, but you're not going to have a pool on a lot that's got a 5-foot setback. In fact, you're going to have a hard time putting a house on it that's of any size that's actually compatible in what is in the neighborhood existing. You're going to change the culture of the neighborhood and the value of the neighborhood by diminishing the lot sizes and building smaller houses. And by the nature of the smaller houses, probably, I'm sure they can make it attractive, but it won't be comparable to the houses that surround it. Many things have been brought up by people before me, all valid. It's a large tract of land that absorbs water. And it's not the developer's responsibility to keep a large tract of land developing water. But the fact is that at certain heavy storms, the water already exceeds the ability of the ground and the drainage to handle it. Adding 13 more houses will only exacerbate that situation on top of the 58 that are proposed. I really heartily endorse that you might deny this claim for the betterment of the neighborhood and for the city of Palm Coast.
Thank you.
Teddy Komninakis, 177 Eric Drive. I'm just here to beat a dead horse. My neighbors told you exactly what they feel. It's going to destroy this neighborhood if you allow the additional 13. We don't want the additional 58, but we have no choice. The infrastructure that the gentleman brought up, it's not up to par. I know you guys promised to build more. That hasn't happened. Everything is going to, I don't know, Palm Coast is changing like immediate. I mean, it's not what it used to be. When we first moved in here, nothing was built. My wife was complaining, you moved to the middle of nowhere. I mean, Target wasn't there, nothing was there. But I told her, it's gonna come. Man, it came. You guys need to just slow the pace down. I know we can't stop this, but you guys need to slow the pace down. Infrastructure is not up to par. You guys should know this. So slow things down. US 1 is out of control right now with all those developments up there. One housing project after another. And these are going to be cookie cutter houses. They're going to be those 1,200 square foot homes. That's going to destroy our neighborhood, our values. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from the public? Seeing no additional members of the public approach, we will close public comment. We will allow for the applicant to come for a rebuttal.
Madam Chair, as they're coming up, if I could add a point of clarification of Member Decker's question regarding infrastructure and utilities. I verified that this particular subject property is within the bounds of wastewater treatment facility number 1. And regarding the availability of utilities, Ms. Nika Husseini, who's at the podium now, she reminded me of the application. Reach out to utilities. They get a letter of availability for the particular project. Now, just so you know, the city doesn't do reservations of capacity, so that reservation of capacity is made when it actually goes through after the planning process, when it's coming for building permit. So the utility department provides a general statement of availability of utilities, but when it gets further along in the process, that's when they actually make the reservation of capacity.
Okay, so that letter of availability simply states that it is available. It doesn't mean that it has the capacity.
That's correct.
No, does that?
Also, one more thing to add to that, that's also under a DEP consent order where everything would have to be approved by DEP. So it's not like we're agreeing to anything or anything. DEP would have to consent to it, and I would also add that DEP has yet to deny any type of capacity issues, as it's an ongoing working relationship with the City of Palm Coast.
Now, are those numbers off of the approved 58 homes or the increased 71?
When they got the approved 58, they went through that process as well, but with the application for the MPD amendment, it would have, they submitted for utility availability, from my understanding as well. So it's just that general statement of availability. When they go through the plating process, that's when they have to do that reservation of capacity for the 71 units as well.
So I'm just trying to clarify, the letter that they received is that from their new application was 71 homes or the original 58?
I believe so, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so what?
Oh, you're saying it's for the,
Is it for 71 or 58?
It's not for a number. It simply says that water and sewer availability
Yeah.
to the property. Like,
Yeah.
for example, they're not on a well. Doesn't say that it has capacity. It just says that the city provides services to that area, but it does not say that the city has the capacity at this time to provide service to that area.
Because, Mr. Decker, they have to go through the permitting process with DEP to go through that. So we're not there yet. So that you're asking a valid question, but you will not know that information until it gets permitted and it's approved by DEP.
Okay.
One additional comment, though. Under normal circumstances, if we had the capacity available, and we weren't under the consent with DEP right now, the city of Palm Coast would have the ability to issue that letter verifying capacity, correct?
So I'll answer your question with the caveat. We do have capacity. So there's nothing in there that says that we don't have capacity. It's an ongoing managing thing that we look at every month and we report with DEP. And to this date, they have not said that we don't have capacity. So we do have capacity. But if we were not under a DEP consent order, then it would be a general permit. But however, since we are on a DEP consent order, it's an individual permit process.
And that capacity is for the whole city, correct? Not specific areas.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you all. Good evening. For the record, Nika Hosseini with ICI Homes, 2379 Bevel Road in Daytona. First of all, we started with Chipotle, then we went to the mobile food vending trucks, and I'm a little hungry, so I know you guys are, so I won't take up too much of your time here, but I do want to point out a couple of matters for you and for the benefit of everyone here. First, I want to thank Michael and staff, because we have been going at this for these 13 additional units for months and months and months. We've had numerous meetings, not only with Michael and his staff, but also city leadership, because we did not want to get to this point and have a half-baked, well, we've kind of looked at it, well, we just want this to want it type of a situation. This has been diligently reviewed over and over again with numerous iterations of what the city is looking for, of why we're here. And we got to a point with both city leadership and city staff that, as you can see, Michael had no contingencies or comments. On page 51 of his report, he does state that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And he goes through all of those policies and why it's consistent. And it might seem simple when it's in the packet, but we've gone through a lot of back and forth with the city in understanding what is required and to ensure that we meet those requirements. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to ensure that whatever the requirements the city has and any other regulatory agencies, that those requirements are met. And if those requirements are not met, if we get to a point of capacity review for utilities and there isn't capacity, we can't move forward with this project. So we aren't at that phase yet. We are at the phase of, hey, we're looking to do this, and here's why, and here's whether or not it meets your comprehensive plan and your land development code. So first, we have worked with the city leadership and city staff for months, and we appreciate the city working with us. This amendment does increase the amount of units, but it does not increase the development footprint. It actually reduces the development footprint ever so slightly. This goes towards your comprehensive plan policies, encouraging compact, contiguous development, and discouraging urban sprawl. So you talk about the location of this. It's a infill site that has availability in terms of the location of utilities to come to this site. It has residences surrounding this site already that are much higher density than this site will allow for development.
Audience, please.
As Michael said in the staff report, the zoning in the surrounding area is 4 to 5 dwelling units per acre. This would go from 1.5-ish dwelling units per acre to 1.91 dwelling units per acre. So that is the difference in density. The perimeter lots are going to remain at 60 feet wide. The project does have that 25-foot buffer, and just for the benefit of everyone here, residential to residential requires no buffer at all. And this has a 25-foot buffer, but that preserves that area. A couple of other quick points, and I'll get out of here. The Grand Reserve project that was mentioned a couple times, that's close by, they're 40-foot lots with a 0-foot perimeter buffer around any of their lots. That is a national builder project. Some individuals may not be familiar with our company. We have been in business for 45 years. We do not do cookie cutter homes. Our 50-foot product, the starting price for that product, not in Plantation Bay, but in other areas, starts in the 500s and goes up from there. So we are local. We are not, I was born and raised here. So, some people came here 4 years ago. Some people have been here for a very long time. I understand that. We are not we're going to do this and run. We're from the community. I was born and raised in this community. We will continue to be here and serve our community. And we don't want to be in a position where we can't deliver the quality and type of home that we typically do, which would require a decision as to whether or not to sell this or to do something else with the property, other than what we know we are very good at, which is high quality development. So just to reiterate what Michael said in the beginning, what this comes down to, and as you all know, I know you're all experts in your relevant fields. What this comes down to is competent, substantial evidence, which must be more than mere opinion, speculation, or popular clamor, and must include expert testimony. We have gone through this process with your city staff. We have met all the requirements of your city code and comprehensive plan. And as a result of that, we are respectfully requesting your approval to move this project along. And if you have any questions or concerns, we're happy to answer them. But we would like a vote here tonight, either way, as to how we can move this project forward. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We will return to the planning board. Do we have any additional questions or comments?
I have comments.
Okay, yes, Mr. Stevenson.
The neighborhood, has certain types of homes and certain size lots. And looking at the 58 plot, it looks like it fits the mold pretty good. A decent lot, you put a decent sized home on it. It's got 2 entrances in and out. Fire department can get in and out. The people that live there could get in and out. You're looking at the new one, and it doesn't fit. Okay, now it seemed like they did their due diligence and they said we're going to build 58 lots. Well, there's a pattern in Palm Coast in the past. 2 years ago, there was a project called the Cascades. 416 homes were approved. All of a sudden, they're going to come back and they want to build 850, and they want to put apartments and townhomes on there. Well, I happen to live down there, and we fought it because that was wrong. It's bait and switch. And this has the same feel. I'm not accusing anybody, but if you're happy with what you asked for in the first place, be happy with it. And I just don't think this fits. That's my opinion.
There are no additional comments from the public at this time. We're taking board comments only. Yes, Mr. Decker.
Things. I agree with the 2 entrances on the original plans, now limited to 1. I don't see where the emergency entrance is, and you're supposed to have 2 entrances, one paved and then one could be paved or non-paved as a second for emergency vehicles. Just because something is consistent with the plan doesn't mean it automatically gets approved. I want the community to know that there's a lot of developments that have already been approved, just hasn't started. Us as a board, we're limited to what we can approve and not approve. So even though community wants us to not approve it, but it does fit, our hands are tied sometimes to having to approve things or not approve things. Home that's right across the street from it that is now looking at trees, which is going to have to now look at a lift station, which will lower the value of that home in addition. Affordable housing is a huge issue in the city, I agree, and it needs to be looked at. The settlement changes the use of the property to help the builder build, or they would have built less. I mean, the 58 homes were approved, and it's going to happen no matter what. So I know the one public comment wasn't sure if this was approved or not. It's already approved. Our hands are tied on that. It is going to happen. For traffic, that's been a huge conversation with this board and many others over a lot of different issues: turn lanes, widening roads. I was on 100 this morning around 7:15 or so, 7 o'clock, dropping off my kids at school, and a bicyclist was hit by an individual, and so I had to stop and hold C-spot and help them out. So the gentleman that rides, it's a huge concern. Traffic is a major issue. We had 2 patrol deputies, or 2 motor deputies that were hit. Was it yesterday? And then we had another patrol vehicle get totaled the week prior. So it is a huge issue with traffic. And that's a continued conversation that this board is going to have with the city. What is it? The current market, I know people talked about it. Current market shows that it's a buyer's market. 6 months of inventory. So what that means is that if no other homes went on the market right now, it would take 6 months to sell everything that's currently on the market. There's about 1,119 properties that are on the market right now, and that's not including all of the new construction that just is not listed in the MLS. Plantation Bay is a development with amenities, I agree, so comparing the two definitely doesn't play into this. And we don't know what they're going to be selling them for. So, and I know that they can't make that decision right now. Market dictates pricing, so we don't know what they're going to price it at. So that's a concern I know some of you guys had. Those are some comments that I have.
Are there any additional comments? Seeing none, I do have some comments. On March 28, 2012, the city received the final copy of the settlement and commitment agreement. And item 5, under developer commitments, the city and developer further agree to the following terms or conditions, the responsibility of which is clarified as follows. I will not read them all. But under item number 1, general, subsection C, it says residential units. The developer shall not seek more than 58 single-family residential dwelling units in the MPD. It also says under section D of the item D of the same section, open space. The MPD shall include an area not less than 18 plus or minus acres to serve as open space that may include the development of storm water retention ponds, plural. When I looked at the site plan for the proposed development, correct me if I'm wrong, but I only see one pond, which is a detention pond, if I'm not mistaken. The initial site plan for the original 58 included 3 ponds. So there's a deviation from that. The initial site plan also included 2 common areas. There's only 1 common area in the new proposed site plan. When the applicant provided their presentation, their exhibit on the applicant's presentation, not staff's presentation, showed Exhibit C site plan for the proposed development now, wetlands of 7.87 acres. That's a decrease from 10.3 acres on the original site plan. So they're not preserving more wetlands. If I'm looking at it incorrectly, when I look at the bottom of your location map, and it says wetlands, let me find where I saw it at. Wetland at the very bottom, wetland parcel, and it looks like a 7.87 acre on that screen at the very last thing above the line that says total. It says 7.87 acre wetland parcel.
I see it too, 7.87.
Yes, and on the original site plan, it says 10.3 acres for the wetland parcel. In addition to the comment that was made regarding the need for workforce housing, and Mr. Decker did an excellent job outlining the current market and the current inventory. And I believe the applicant stated that for the proposed footprint of what they're looking to develop there, those same models currently sell for $500,000. So as the speaker spoke about the need for workforce housing, that completely eliminates our teachers, our nurses, our firefighters, our police officers. So the applicant did state the need for the increase of the 13 units is economic feasibility. And based upon substantial and competent evidence, when we look at the proposed development must not create an unreasonable hazard or nuisance or constitute a threat to the general health, welfare, or safety of the city's inhabitants. The lift station was not included in the original site plan. The lift station is now in this site plan, which says that there is a concern about the ability to not cause an issue, a threat to the general health, welfare, or safety of the inhabitants. In addition to that, the safety and safety of the community, this property initially had two entrances. Now it's a one road instead of two, and you have two cul-de-sacs, whereas it was not like that. It was more of, though it's not circular, more of a circular type entrance, which means that the safety for emergency service vehicles to be able to access the property is also poses a safety, a threat to the safety and well-being of the inhabitants. So based upon those are my concerns, and that's the evidence to support non-compliance as we see it right now.
Madam Chair, if I could add a point of clarification, the Land Development Code for residential development only requires a secondary point of access to the site if the residential development hits 100 or more units.
Now, is that also with the proposed changes?
Well, that's our standard in the Land Development Code, so it doesn't specifically change that in the development agreement, so then it would default back to the Land Development Code. So the proposed development has a total of 71 units, so based on the Land Development Code, to be compliant with the Land Development Code, technically only requires one point of access.
I mean, the proposed changes to the Land Development Code that this board has been addressing over the last few months, there's a change to the amount of dwelling units before certain roads are required. I don't remember the numbers or what those changes were proposed to, but does that?
The current standard requires a secondary access at 100 units. It previously used to be 50, but recently, I believe before I actually started with the city approximately 2 years ago, it was increased to 100 units.
So at the time that this agreement was established, it was compliant at that time?
That would have been accurate.
Do they need to make the change because they have not started building and the site plan has not been approved? Do they need to, if the Land Development Code is changed, and I don't remember what number we've changed it to or agreed to because it hasn't even been approved, final approval yet, will they have to make changes to their site plan since it has not been approved to the new developments? Because I remember something changing from 50 to 100 or 100 to 50.
Mr. Decker, just to clarify, I don't know the exact number either, but it's going up rather than going down.
Okay.
So, yes, sir.
I just wanted to check. Also, I know that somebody in the public made it noted that their original plot, the original land that they had, the city already made adjustments to allow them to do the land swap. So which allows them to build the number of units that they've already been approved for. If they didn't have that land swap, they'd be building less than 58 properties.
And I think it is important that the city at the time reached a settlement and commitment agreement with ICI Homes. The subsidiaries have changed, but it's ICI Homes. And we need to be compliant. It was compliant at the time of the Land Development Code. It met everything as required in the Land Development Code at that time. And financial feasibility is not enough to warrant deviating from what is required for them to be able to meet the consistency of the Land Development Code. And I think that we have pointed out competent and substantial evidence for denial.
I have a question for legal. As Ms. Schenk stated regarding the signed agreement where they won't go back to the well and request more, is this a legal binding document that precludes them from, even while we're here tonight?
No. So what it is that this is, they have a settlement agreement, and city council is the only people that are authorized to change that agreement. So what they're doing is if it gets go to city council and they do make an approval, then the city council can make changes to that settlement agreement.
Hello, yes, sir. Are you with ICI Homes? Are you the applicant?
Yes, ma'am. My name's James Stowers with ICI Homes. I am the applicant. And I apologize for coming up here, but there's so much information that got sideways. I saw the staff report, and I appreciate the staff report, but then there was 100 pages of all the background on this project. And unfortunately, I think some things got jumbled in the process. Number one, what was pulled up earlier that had the 2 access points was a concept plan from the original PUD, okay? What we have approval for is a development order. It's different than that 2 access point concept plan. So that engineering was done, I think it was 6 years ago. That development order was approved. That development order, which we have now currently, has a lift station in its current location. So the suggestion that something was added or something nefarious happened, inaccurate. We went through with the engineered plans. We have that lift station location. We have that single access. I met with the city back in March, and the conversation we had about financial feasibility wasn't about sell a house for more, sell a house for less. It was, what does it cost to bring a lot to the market? How much does it cost? In 2012, let's say development costs probably $300 to $500 a front foot. Okay, post-pandemic, currently $1,300 to $1,500 a front foot. That's a drastic difference. We were having this conversation, and we said, if we were to build the footprint the same, we were to look at the larger of the 2 lots on the outside, keep the buffers. If we went through this process, would it be supportable? And they said, go through the process. And we said, okay, well, we have this settlement agreement. What do you think about that? And we found the provision that says, if the owner and the city agree, we can modify it. So it's not about retrading a deal. It's about the evolution of the marketplace. And when you come down to it, what it costs to have those lots at, let's say, $1,500 a front foot to develop, and with carry costs and everything else, let's put it at $2,000. Well, an 80-foot lot is now a $160,000 lot, okay? And when you start looking at what a home costs that you're gonna put on that, it's generally 20%. So now you multiply that by 5, you're talking about $800,000–900,000 houses, okay? Going in it, that's what the market is. So we looked at trying to find something that's gonna be a good product for this area, but it's not gonna go backwards and have, houses that you can't, lots that you can't develop. So that's how we got through that process, and that's what we have here tonight. So I just, the big things were, you know, the lift station conversation. And, you know, you may all know, a lift station is underground, there's a fence, and then we landscape them. And so, you know, the suggestion that that equals low property values, I have one in my neighborhood, I'm sure most of you have them in your neighborhoods. And there's homes around them all the time. This one is on the side, on the back. And this property owner who I spoke with at the neighborhood meeting, she's on the other side of the 25-foot buffer. And I explained to her at the neighborhood meeting that our development order with that lift station, we've had that approval for the last 4+ years. So I could go on, but I just wanted to clarify some of those points, and I appreciate you voting however you're going to vote, but I just didn't want it to be based on some information that's incorrect. So.
To tack onto what Mr. Stover's talking about, those concept plans from the approved MPD and the proposed MPD, they're conceptual in nature. So that's your 10,000-foot aerial overview. So when they actually go through with their application for plating processes, they get more specific and more detailed. So the overall changes can change from that concept plan, can change a little bit to when they get the actual go through with their plat.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Albano.
Why doesn't the board have a copy of the development order plans, even though they're conceptual? Why are we looking at 2012 plans and not something that's less than 4 years old?
The preliminary plat development order at this point relates to the previous application, which it got to the point that it was expiring. The applicants submitted, I believe, a tolling extension under state statute 252. I believe it's 36 for tolling extension on that. That particular plan, as it was stalled out for a preliminary plat, it wasn't being considered at the time for the application because they didn't submit final plat and to go through with that process. So the evaluation for the request for the changes of the development agreement for the MPD included the conceptual plans that are attached as exhibits to the MPD for both the approved and the proposed.
So is there actually a current plat with one entrance for 58 homes?
Yeah, do we have an interim site plan?
I'm not aware if there's a current plat with 58 homes. The property as is currently unplatted.
No, well, he said that he had a one entrance 58 home one. Why can't we see that?
Yeah.
And this is the previous approved conceptual plan that the applicant provided with their presentation as well, which largely matches up with the one staff had.
He's trying to say that this one doesn't count. Well, but yet you're showing us this one to count.
And this is from February 2012.
So what they're saying is they used an old one. He's got a conception of one probably. They just haven't presented it to us.
Yeah, that's what I say. Do you actually have one? It's a yes or no question.
Probably not here today.
With the application, we don't have it because it's not, that was from a preliminary plat application. That was from years ago that stalled out. This application is for an amendment to the MPD development agreement. So it wasn't pertaining to the application for a preliminary plat.
Okay. So they have a valid development order right now. Do they have a plan that development order is tied to? Even though it's a 30,000-foot view.
So the development order that he's talking about would relate to the previously approved preliminary plat that never submitted for final plat approval, so it was never recorded. So the project is still as is with, they have two parcels with the overall application.
So then the development order, it sounds like this is not complete, or there's something that's missing here.
They never finished the final plat application, so they never got final plat approval.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments from the board? Are we ready to make a motion?
I think with the limited information, I move for denial of the amendment.
I'll second that.
Can I just make a recommendation, Mr. Decker? You're making a recommendation to City Council to denial. You can state your motion.
I make a motion to recommend to City Council for denial.
And I second it.
Thank you, Irene. Roll call, please.
Before we do the roll call, it's quasi-judicial, so can we go around and do the ex parte communication again, please?
Please. Mr. Decker, any ex parte communication?
No.
Okay. Any Okay. Everybody, we have a consensus?
Negative responses from all members.
Okay, thank
Can I
you.
make it known too that if you're voting yes, you're voting for denial?
For denial, yes.
Miss Irene, please make roll call.
Board Member Decker.
Yes.
Board Member Hilton.
Yes.
Board Member Stansel.
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson.
Yes. Yes.
Vice Chair Albano.
Yes.
Chair Shank.
Yes.
Motion for denial is approved 6-0.
Thank you. We will move to the next item on the agenda. Is there any board discussion or staff issues? Seeing none, next item on the agenda is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I have
Oh, you have a discussion?
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
How do I put this next?
I'm sorry, your mic might not
I
be
think we
on.
need to have a time limit on staff.
Well,
I think we need to start talking about a time limit for staff presentations. Sometimes they get a, thank you.
Thank you.
I think things are getting too wordy. I think I've counted it was 37 minutes to go through the 5 criteria. We're all professionals on the board that have been here for multiple years. We all know the 5 criteria, and I think it's very redundant to just be repetitive on the 5 bullet points. So I'd make a suggestion that we try to find a way to limit staff presentations to a reasonable time based on the type of product that we're looking at.
In other words, you want to streamline it.
Yes.
I think we got to ask staff, is that something that we can do so that you don't have to repeat yourself over and over again for every topic that you have to go through that?
I think that's just actually a style because I've been on the board now for a while and that had not been an issue before. So I think we typically just kind of move through it. Go ahead.
Well, I don't want to call
Papa.
Mr. Hanson.
Yes.
It's not only Mr. Hanson, and I've been in presentations where he was more streamlined. I'm just trying to say, in the grand scheme of things,
I guess I will
we're
put
getting
it,
extraneous information. Maybe it's to appeal to the public, but the presentation is to us, not to the
Yes.
public.
I'll put it this way. We can discuss it with the planning manager and with legal counsel. We've sort of gone back and forth with this. I think due to, we have tried to be more streamlined in presenting what is in our staff report with a full understanding that the board will read the staff report and we are summarizing what's in the staff report. There has come a point too where we've been advised that, remember, that you're testifying at a public hearing. And to testify at a public hearing, you need to be complete, you need to be clear, and in some shape or form, try to be concise too. But we are presenting evidence. And so if maybe for more contentious issues such as this, maybe more detail needed to come out, whereas maybe with the item where it's a Chipotle, everybody loves it, maybe the presentation could have been abridged or should have been abridged. But I just wanted to give you that perspective from staff. You know, a lot of times we do rely on legal counsel and where we are with how we present our items to the board. And I think we've seen the pendulum swing back and forth. And we will try to be concise as much as we can and maybe more. And at the same time, try to be comprehensive, if that's not a paradox.
I think that what Mr. Albano is saying, though, is that when staff is making the presentation, The presentation is thorough. It's when we move then to the criteria, what has been presented is then repeated again and elaborated on again. So it's like we're receiving a double or 2.5 times the same presentation.
Thank you for pointing that out. Maybe as we review the land development code, maybe it's an opportunity to consolidate and combine some of those criteria so that when we present it, we will cover both things.
But
I
I-
appreciate the color on that, that you explained that, and
Yes, sir.
there's no disrespect to Mr. Hanson. He does a tremendous job with these presentations, and
But I will say this, going to the planning, training, workshops, I mean, it is commendable that we go through the criteria. That is a very good thing. I mean, they emphasize that. I think, again, the only concern is that we don't want to do the same presentation again while presenting the criteria.
Right. And one thing, if I could just add to that, so valid thing to bring up, but what, like, when staff is presenting something, they, like Mr. Papa said, they are creating a record. So when we do these things, we have to make sure we're doing it to the T, because if we get appealed, if a decision gets appealed, when we go to the court, we rely on the record. We rely on the transcript. So if we move through something too fast and something's let out, that could be the difference between something getting overturned and something not. But that's probably why it's very lengthy, maybe very wordy. And also, another perspective is that we don't want anyone from the public saying, hey, you have this in your report, but how come you didn't present it to City Council? You're hiding something. So there's also that public perception to make sure everything is being said when we're at the presentation and nothing's being hid.
Thank
valid
you.
information. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
All in favor?
Second.
All righty, everybody have a good evening.